I pressed the wrong thing. That's okay. But Gal is telling us no, because it's the end of the week, guys. No, it's the end of the week. I'm sorry, guys, but we only have 2 more shows left for you today on this wonderful Friday. But let's not think about that. Let's just think about the current time and the present. And the present is, of course, more Paramount Warner Brothers talk. You thought it was going to be over? They were just going to buy it and we were just going to stop talking about it? Of course not. We're going to keep milking this train until we can't no more. And then milk it some more, just like Disney with Marvel. Anyway, we are going to keep milking that Paramount train. I'm switching up my euphemisms. It's fine. Going to keep milking that. We're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff from the Paramount side, how Netflix is doing, how Warner Brothers is doing, the comparative of the 3, and kind of getting a handle on the situation and what the future of all of this is going to be. So we have talks of that. We have talks of some madness. And we're not talking about the madness of David Ellison. We're talking about some movie talk madness, as well as some TV talk tomfoolery. We got some Project Hail Mary projections. We got some Bride projections. And then we got a first look about Ronald D. Moore's upcoming God of War series. Will it be good or will it be bad? Well, that first image ain't looking quite good, but we are going to be talking about it. Then, of course, we have our quick hits, and then a big thing for DCU Daily. We're going to be having a couple quick hits. We're going to be going back to some Paramount plans for DC Studios. What that means is James Gunn and Peter Safran going to stay around, or is Ellison going to get rid of them and replace them with someone like Brett Ratner? We'll have to wait and see for that one. Although, speaking of mediocre directors, Zack Snyder was on Josh Horowitz's show, and he had a lot to say about his time doing DC movies, what the DC movies are looking like to him right now, and what the future of his relationship with DC will be. So, all of that and more. Let us continue into the news before I lose my voice.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number 2.
All right, mister, I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding. You're kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne. I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see Corinth.
Right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What the
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
Here we are, news time. Gonna have all sorts of news stories for you today. I'm, of course, your host, John. Lovely to see you all. I'm still on the mend, but I'm sounding hopefully better and not quite as gross and congested to all of you lovely people watching. But speaking of gross and congested, Dan, who is also not feeling very well either, is also here. Dan, how are you doing? Because I know you kind of have the same thing I do. How are you on the mend in regards to your sickness, and how are you feeling at the end of the week now?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that transition sounded better in your head, but that's okay. I just talked through Tier List Tuesday. We did a special Friday edition ranking all the Fast and Furious movies, so go check that out if you didn't get a chance to, and thank you for those of you who did tune into that. But yeah, excited to talk about lots of DC stuff today, a lot of Zack Snyder stuff, because he did the Happy Sad Confused podcast with Josh Horowitz recently, and that came out today. And well, there's a lot to get into there, but then there's of course a lot to get into about the whole Paramount Warner Brothers deal. So we will get into that.
Let's get into it right here, right now.
Yeah.
Let's get into this lovely thing that everyone is sick of us talking about. And
Well, okay. We're gonna walk through a few of the things that are going on, and then kind of like, basically looking at it from now that it's been basically 24 hours since all of this went down, Netflix walking away, and almost, but pretty much by default, Paramount, winning. They did have the better offer, and Netflix decided not to match it. Well, as a result of that, it looks like, according to this article in Variety, Paramount Skydance having won this bidding war now with Netflix bowing out, the mood inside all three companies ranges from champagne toast on the Paramount lot to gut punch on the Warner Brothers lot. And I'm not going to go into the article too much, but just going to summarize, and you guys are welcome to go find it for yourself and read this in Variety, whether, you go to variety.com and search for it or just Google it. But essentially, they were talking about how the people on the Paramount lot are relieved. They're happy. There's a lot of hiring freezes that were in place, or like holes, because they weren't hiring in some departments and divisions because they thought that, if there were a merger that were to happen, then some of those positions would become redundant. So, those divisions heads feel a little relieved that they have some more clarity on the future of Paramount now that they are going to have a merger. I'm almost glad they didn't go hiring some people that they would have then had to let go, because it's that would feel cruel. So and then also a lot of senior leadership at Paramount Skydance is sort of relieved that this is now done, because so much of their time and effort was taken up not from doing their day-to-day jobs, which is tell stories on on TV and at the movies, and work on developing new IP and franchises and good storytelling, and focus a lot of their time just essentially on working with the brass at Paramount to try to get this deal done with Warner Brothers. So now they can kind of pivot back to doing the jobs that they actually got hired to do. So that's Paramount. Then, you look at Warner Brothers, that's the gut punch, side of things, because a lot of people at Warner Brothers were under the impression that the Netflix deal was going to go through. Like, remember, it's been like 2 months now since Netflix had signed that deal with Warner Brothers. So, and the co-CEOs of Netflix walked into and on and all the way around the Warner Brothers backlot in Burbank and had a whole, event with Warner Brothers employees and stuff. So I can imagine if I was a Warner Brothers employee right now, I would feel like, yeah, this is a bit like whiplash. Like, what the hell just happened? And especially because of how quickly it all transpired, right? Because there's a lot of people at Warner Brothers that this article talks about, again, with the anonymity, they don't name any names, but who were under the impression and were hoping, at least, that Netflix would take the 4 days that was given to Netflix by Warner Brothers, as part of the process once they declared the Paramount bid to be superior, that Netflix would have 4 days to essentially come up with a counteroffer. And they didn't think Netflix would literally do it within the hour. Like, in minutes from the announcement that Warner Brothers made, their board made about the Paramount offer being the superior one, Netflix said, all right, cool, goodbye, we're done. It didn't take very long. It's almost like they were prepared to do that if that was the case. So, and maybe something of that had to do with Ted Sarandos visiting the White House and talking to the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, and the Chief of Staff at the White House. So maybe that informed Ted Sarandos' decision making, that things weren't looking very rosy, and maybe that they were looking at a lengthy lawsuit from the Department of Justice in the U.S. and stuff. So the Warner Brothers employees feel like they just got whiplash, and gut punch. Like, I totally would be feeling the same if I was in their position. So not a lot of optimism. I mean, I'm sure there's people who are like, oh yeah, it'd be great, we'll work with Paramount, but you gotta wonder, if like the two studio backlots will stay together. Like, the Melrose lot that Paramount has and the Burbank lot that Warner Brothers have are literally, a few miles apart. They're in the same city, they're in LA. So, like, do you really need two huge studio backlots? That's a big question. So, and then when you look at the Netflix offices, their HQ in LA, which is one of their bigger, office HQs, they have multiple different, places where they're housed, but they have a big presence in LA. So a lot of people in Netflix were like, okay, they were kind of looking forward to getting a lot the development opportunities to work with all the franchises Warner Brothers has. There's a lot of creatives at Netflix who were hoping they would get their hands on Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, DC. They don't have that anymore. You know, like if they want any of that, they'll have to license it through Warner Brothers, Paramount. So there was disappointment around that, but then a lot of people were like, phew, that was, you know, like gonna be a whole big change to the company, because Warner Brothers is a huge addition to Netflix if that were to happen. So there was some relief, and then there was some just, you know, overall looking at it like, you know, I wish we did get access to all that IP that Warner Brothers would have brought to us. So yeah, Netflix sort of, you know, the sentiment kind of down the middle. Paramount relieved and happy, toasting champagne. Warner Brothers, you know, gut punch, whiplash. I don't think a lot of that is unexpected considering the circumstances, but yeah, you know, and it's real people, of course, whose jobs are on the line here. They don't know who's going to get laid off or not. CNN's Mark Thompson, the head of CNN, put out a memo to his team saying, don't believe or don't jump to conclusions just yet until we know more. Because I bet you a lot of people at CNN are worried about their jobs right now, you know? So, and they're not the only ones. Across all different companies at Warner Brothers, I'm sure that's the same thing. So, yeah. But John, let's kind of talk about for a moment David Ellison, because David Ellison, of course, now is in the spotlight, right? He is the man who's gonna be in charge of all of this that's yet to come. Actually, you know what? Before we get to David Ellison, let's talk about David Zaslav. If you scroll down here, David Zaslav has a comment that he made that I wanted to kind of quickly get into. This was part of the statement that Warner Brothers put out yesterday. David Zaslav had a couple of quotes in there announcing that they were going to go with the Paramount deal as a superior offer. And in this, it's a very different tone that David Zaslav is singing compared to what he was, you know, striking earlier with the Netflix deal a couple of months ago. And he said, Netflix is a great company, and throughout this process, Ted, Greg, Spence, and everyone there have been extraordinary partners to us. We wish them well in the future. Once our board votes to adapt the Paramount merger agreement, which they have now since yesterday, it will create tremendous value for our shareholders. We are excited about the potential of a combined Paramount, Skydance, and Warner Brothers Discovery, and can't wait to get started working together, telling the stories that move the world. There's one of those Zaslavisms, telling the stories that move the world. Not quite as poetic as A Rendezvous with Destiny, but, you know, nonetheless. John, your reaction to this, because some of this just makes David Zaslav sound almost as cold as we all think he is. Like, he was like, thank you, Netflix, you were great. I enjoyed giving you the tour of the backlot. Turns out you didn't want to pony up the cash, and I'm going to take the money and walk, you know, with Paramount. So, yeah, are you surprised by what David Zaslav said?
Not at all. Corporate billionaires be corporate billionairing.
Yeah.
Just how it is.
Well, now we talk about...
I wish the best for when, you know, David Ellison and David Zaslav start 69ing each other in, you know, the White House. So, you know, have their fun, suck each other off, slob the knobs and assholes of all the, you know, money-hungry dickbags who are like destroying the movie industry. Have fun. Thanks. I fucking hate all of you. Hashtag Hollywood needs to be nuked.
Too bad Epstein Island isn't a thing anymore. But anyway, let's move on to talking about David Ellison. Because David Ellison, of course, is going to be the man who's in charge of this new empire he's built up. And if you go to... There's an article that they put together. I think this is the next one we want to talk about for a moment in the Hollywood Reporter. They kind of pointed out a few things in this, like almost like a profile of David Ellison. Not really what you would think of as a profile, because it's not like they interviewed him, but they did kind of highlight basically the career of David Ellison, because he is the son of Larry Ellison, so, you know, he's always grown up, you know, rich with a lot of money to, you know, at his disposal. And so you could say he comes from privilege. He does, absolutely does. He used to be like, he was an actor before he became a film executive. He apparently started out acting, didn't work out so well. Years ago now, and then he decided, you know what, I'm just going to finance movies. I've got the money, you know, and let's see how I do. And he started out, financing some relatively unknown small indie movies, and he's, you know, sort of championed those movies, and in the process, you know, working his way up from unknown films, to eventually getting to finance the Mission Impossible franchise. He even was one of the biggest financiers for the Top Gun Maverick movie that was huge for Paramount. In fact, he's financed majority of Paramount's movie slate for the last 10 or so years. And granted that, it's not like he did that because he was really a savvy businessman, because a lot of it is because he had the money to do it, and a lot of that money comes from his family, his very rich father. But he still managed to pry some of those, well, not pry those doors open, but he's looked at an opportunity and walked through those doors. And the latest examples of that were, of course, it took a year and a half, or like a little over a year, to finally buy Paramount, because that was something that took a while to get approved. And now he's really made a step up, and despite the odds, I mean, a lot of bookies would have said Paramount had no chance at getting Warner Brothers just a few days ago. He's got Warner Brothers, Sean. But the question this article asks is pretty important, I think, because despite having defied the odds with the money that he's had at his disposal, some of it coming from the Middle East sovereign wealth funds, a lot of it coming from his father, some of it just being straight up, debt that they're going to have loaded onto the new company. There's a big question mark around David Ellison and just how savvy he is as a businessman, as a business leader. Because it's one thing when you're financing movies for Paramount, it's one thing when you're even running Paramount Pictures, because Paramount is a company that they bought for $8 billion. Warner Brothers, they just paid $111 billion. That's more than 10 times as much. It's a much bigger company, and it has twice the size of the workforce that Paramount has. John, do you, just looking at the brief history I just gave you of who David Ellison is, but like the one thing I can say is David Ellison has grown up financing movies, and he does like filmmakers and producers. That's what he has championed over the years. So I guess that could be a saving grace. But we don't really know what he is as in terms of just a CEO of a big company the size of what would be Paramount and Warner Brothers. It's one thing to be Skydance, it's one thing to be even Paramount, but like now he's stepping into a whole different ball game. Do you think he's up for the job? Because his resume doesn't, because most people in this situation, even a David Zaslav, have been doing this in the business for like 20 plus years. Like he was at Discovery, before that he was at NBC Universal. Bob Iger, before he was a Disney CEO, he had worked his way up at Disney for decades. Do you really think David Ellison is up for this? Like, can he I don't think so at all. Yeah,
the sake of the people who work there. Rich enough to fucking get away with it. And then when it all crumbles eventually, like, it's going to be sold off for pennies. Like, he'll still be rich, but, like, it's going to break up eventually. We just don't know how long that's going to last. Yeah. So, obviously we'll have to wait and see, but I just don't think he's cut out for it. I think he's just, rich man, I want everything, gimme, gimme, gimme. And so he's like, okay, I want that company. Cool. I want that company. I want that company. You know what? Next up, he's probably going to purchase Netflix. Fuck it. You try to take my company that I wanted, and then fuck it, he'll buy Netflix. Fuck it. It's like, you were going to get it. Oh, boo-hoo, now you don't have it? Fine, I'm buying you now. Fuck you. So, like, I can see him doing that.
I don't know if I'm not going to speculate that far ahead, but to address, look, here's the thing, he has been savvy so far. I'm just saying it's one thing to cut costs and efficiencies to be profitable, which is what he's been doing at Paramount so far. He said that he's got a very tech forward vision for what he wants to do with Paramount, and now I assume with the new company, because he comes from that Silicon Valley background. So
half of them are probably going to fucking be made by AI. That's what it's going to be. Like, we're going to have, Superman with, fucking 12 fingers and 16 hands fighting, air, and while he's trying to punch, the sun or, some shit. I don't fucking know. Just, that's what it's going to be. And I can't wait. Man, isn't dystopia great? If only we had a million gaming, movie, and television franchises to tell us that all of this was going to be a bad idea. Oh, well.
I mean, a lot of books, too, but anyway.
Books, yes.
I think the point I'm trying to make here is David Ellison, give him credit for doing what he did and the way he did it to get Warner Brothers Discovery. I don't think anybody expected Netflix would walk away this easily. Fair game. But just because he's been savvy, I don't think guarantees that he's going to be able to run this huge company that he's got on his hands now. And that company is going to have a lot of debt. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. But you know, the company that's not going to have a lot of debt, John, is Netflix, because Wall Street is loving Netflix walking away from this deal, because the sentiment right now is that Netflix wins anyway. Like, they walked away, but they did not lose. Their stock, we talked about it yesterday, their stock was down like 20% over the last couple of months since they signed the deal with Warner Brothers. It almost made up all of that, losses in just the last 24 hours since they announced they were walking away from the deal. Clearly, most, Wall Street investors think that this is the way to go for Netflix, that they are better off just being a pure play streaming company, and it's good on them to walk away and not clearly overpay for Warner Brothers, because like they said, it was a nice to have, not a must have, and they were very disciplined with their approach. And I mean, essentially the Wall Street insiders are saying, like, take the money and run, and they're so glad that they did. I mean, to be quite frank, like, for example, Netflix's profit last year was 10 times that of the combined profit of Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount. That's a pretty big difference, like 10 times. Netflix is going to be just fine, and they just avoided having added like a $50+ billion of debt onto their coffers. So yeah, and you know what, not only that, John, remember we mentioned it yesterday, and I think we have actually a link for this, because as part of the deal that Paramount made with Warner Brothers, by the way, Hunter Iggy, Warner Brothers cannot go independent if the people at DC say no. That's just not how it works. But as we talked about yesterday, as part of the deal that Paramount made with Warner Brothers, and if you go to the next thing, they just paid on behalf of Warner Brothers the $2.8 billion termination fee to Netflix for Netflix to walk away from Warner Brothers, because essentially, because the way this played out is Netflix said, we're not going to match the Paramount offer, and therefore Warner Brothers shareholders, which are contractually obligated with their fiduciary duties to get the most money for the shareholders, they have gone with the Paramount deal. And to go with the Paramount deal, they've had to break off the Netflix deal. And in the contract with Netflix, Warner Brothers, owes Netflix $2.8 billion. And Paramount said in their latest offer that they're going to cover that fee for them. So not only is Paramount paying like over $110 billion for the deal to get Warner Brothers Discovery, they also just paid $2.8 billion to Netflix. So David Ellis, Netflix is making out like hotcakes. Like they didn't have to pay any of the money, take on any of the debt. They actually walked away with $2.8 billion for their trouble.
And their stocks are fucking amazing.
Yeah, so it's great. I mean, Netflix keeps on winning, So good on Netflix.
It's kind of like the Valve defense: do nothing, win. Okay.
Yeah, do nothing, win. I mean, the other thing that I want to mention real quick before we move on to talking about David Ellison's stuff, as it were, because we want to talk about what's going to happen now, where things stand, and what's coming up next. But I was reading up on Substack earlier today. This was kind of funny to me. Netflix, as part of this entire process, got to look at the books of Warner Brothers Discovery in a way that they otherwise would never have for insight, right? Because as part of the process, Comcast, Netflix, and Paramount Skydance all got to look at how Warner Brothers conducts businesses. They got to see like how that traditional Hollywood model works, theatrical distribution, how they work, advertising revenue works, basically all the Hollywood, dark accounting secrets that Netflix wouldn't be privy to because they're the technology company that, doesn't come from that studio heritage. They have that information now, and you would be forgiven for thinking that they would not use that against all their traditional Hollywood rivals down the road. And they're already, making 10 times the profit of Warner Brothers Paramount combined. I think Netflix is going to take all that information that they just gained and got paid $2.8 billion to do, and they will, probably be back. Like if Warner Brothers Discovery, and with Paramount, like you said, completely crashes out in a few years, I bet you Netflix will be back, and that time, they'll be armed with all that knowledge that they did not have before. So that's another big win for Netflix. Like they got to see the books of Warner Brothers. Like that's something they never would have been able to do without having gone through this process. And now they walk away without any of the debt, and they get paid $2.8 billion for their troubles, which is, I think, a point that a lot of people are not realizing. That's a significant upside for Netflix, like Figure Drawing is saying, and they're going to use that to their advantage, especially right now with all the labor negotiations going on with the WGA, with the actors, SAG-AFTRA, the DGA. So Netflix made out like hotcakes in all of this. But you know what? David Ellison will tell you he made out with hotcakes in all of this as well, because, as it were in Thor Ragnarok, my stuff. Well, David Ellison can point to all of the stuff he got out of this deal. That includes all the cable networks like TNT, and then CBS, the broadcast network, CNN, MTV, TCM, Showtime, Adult Swim, DC Studios, Paramount Plus, Nickelodeon, HBO Max, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network. John, that's a lot of stuff. That is a lot of stuff. I mean, and you look at the film franchises.
Look at all the franchises that he now has.
It's all good enterprising. It's all good. Like, holy shit, John, that's a lot of stuff. Minecraft, Monsterverse, Dune, TMNT, Avatar The Last Airbender, SpongeBob, Lord of the Rings, Mission Impossible, Dora. You got Dora. You got the map. Why are you asking me? Anyway.
Thank you, Chris.
Game of Thrones, Mortal Kombat, The Conjuring, Looney Tunes. Even they're going to distribute the Street Fighter movie as well. A Quiet Place, Transformers. I don't know why Citizen Kane is considered a franchise. Harry Potter, Tom and Jerry, DC Comics, Beetlejuice, Gremlins, Star Trek. I mean, DC Comics itself is a huge thing. I mean, and everything HBO we talked about. Oh god, that's a lot of stuff. Look, we're going to talk about the DC stuff later, Hunter Iggy, but that's a good question. Like the James Gunn question we'll get into. Yeah, they're going to milk all these franchises, and as they should. I mean, you want to make sure you're telling good stories. Like, I don't blame them for making more like, DC movies. Like, we want that stuff. Like, give us more Star Trek, give us more Transformers. I want that stuff. So, look, enterprising, here's the thing. I completely understand how you're feeling, and it's okay to feel down right now, because it is ultimately consolidation. Having said that, this has been a long time coming, and I've been a little pragmatic about it, because like the streaming era was never going to end with like 10 different streaming services all doing just as well. This was coming for a long time. It's incredibly unfortunate, but you also have to kind of like pull back a little bit and look back at like the last 100 years of Hollywood. It's not the first time something like this has happened. It's not even the second, third, fourth, fifth time. MGM was bought and sold for decades on decades before it eventually ended up at Amazon. And there's been many other studios, like Universal Pictures got bought by Comcast years ago. Paramount itself got bought and sold many times. Warner Brothers in just the past 10 years has been bought and sold like 4 different times. So this happens. You just have to take a long-term view at it. Is it going to kill the movies? No. Paramount is not buying all of this simply to destroy that value. Trust in the greed
because
of
they
David
make
Ellison.
bad business decisions,
but
it's not like
incompetence
that's
is
not the
one
intention,
thing. That's not the intention. It's incompetence is one thing, but you also got to remember David Ellison, a lot of people he has hired to work under him, and a lot of the people coming over from Warner Brothers, we will talk about who they're going to keep and not keep. I think the intention here is that you have people who have experience who used to work at, not only Warner Brothers and, before they went to Paramount, but a lot of the senior leadership under David Ellison comes from successful backgrounds at Netflix, successful backgrounds at NBC Universal, or Disney, or like they've got people who have been doing this for a long time. So David Ellison isn't the only one who's going to be making these decisions, and I think him having those other experienced senior leadership, in positions of presidents and other division leaders, I hope that those people will do what they have built their reputations on, and that's a lot of success and some of the biggest stories and movies and TV shows that have seen and loved over the years. Like, they've got the guy who basically signed the Duffer Brothers to do Stranger Things at Netflix, as an example, you know. Uh, yeah, Citizen Kane. I don't know if they're gonna have. What do you mean by detain Citizen Kane for no reason? But okay, Anthony's saying I'm gonna see this. I think Netflix was just in this bidding war to drive up the price to force Paramount to pay more than they wanted to. Yeah, you know, that is a good theory, Anthony. I thought about that for a long time, that, you know, the speed at which Netflix walked away yesterday, maybe that was their plan all along. But to be honest, like, that's one hell of a gamble to take. That's like, I don't think Ted Sarandos was playing that kind of a 4D chess. It just happens to have worked out that way, but that's a theory. I just don't know if it's true. Eric is here. Hello, Dark Elite Eric. And then, hello, Brogu. How are you doing? Welcome on into the show. Let's keep on going, though, John, because there's a nice post I found on Threads, which was a bit of a good TLDR of all this. But actually, you know, good. Let's talk about that before we even get to that. The amount of debt this new company is going to be carrying is going to be incredible. Like, altogether, when you add up the numbers between the debt Paramount has from the Skydance merger, the debt Warner Brothers is bringing over from their current debt load, and then the new financing that Paramount, you know, Skydance just brought in to buy Warner Brothers, altogether, it adds up to like almost $90 million. Yeah, figure drawing, it would have been 8D chess. That's like almost like 8 dimensions would be what, like they can go back in time, so like time is a dimension in that. It's, yeah. Ted Sarandos would be the smartest dude in the world if that's what they were doing.
And there's a comment that kind of shows that, but
yeah,
you know, it's because there's, yeah, essentially billionaires will really break the bank just to keep their toys. But it looks like, as we were kind of saying, wow, it's looking like Netflix is the winner. They created a bidding war that will end up kneecapping one of their main competitors. Now they can use that money to create new content while Warner Paramount drowns in a sea of debt. Well played, Netflix.
Yeah, well played.
Yeah, the debt is going to ruin the company. Let's at least hope the talent that makes the good movies and TV find a new home with big pockets. Ahem, Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, figure drawing, yeah, they did buy, Disney bought Lucasfilm for like $4 billion. But Disney paid $20 billion more for Fox because Comcast came in and put in a bid and forced Disney to pay like way over the top. For Disney, that was still a good deal for Fox. This is by far like the bigger deal. Disney didn't pay anywhere close to this kind of money for Fox. I mean, they didn't get all of Fox, but, you know, and you're getting all of Warner Brothers Discovery here, but still, yeah. There's definitely some comparisons between the two, for sure, Anthony. Definitely true. Yeah, exactly, Chuck Rod.
That's what I was thinking.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I can buy. I can buy that theory.
It'll be like
Netflix is not going anywhere.
It will be like AT&T owning Warner Brothers. It like is it gonna like kill it? No, but it's gonna fucking drive profit. It's like peaks and valleys at this point. Like you had like, you know, AT&T for the longest time, and then it was up with Discovery. Now it's gonna be down again with Paramount, and then we'll see if the rich boy can handle it. He won't, and then it'll be probably broken up, sold off, and Netflix will probably be able to buy fucking Warner Brothers for 3 crumbs and a ham sandwich at this point. So, you know, it's like we'll just have to wait 5 years for, you know, all of this to crumble, and then you have my permission to die. So, you know.
Yeah. Yep. I look, it's there, just the head count of the employees between the two companies is mind-boggling to think about how many people might lose their jobs. Paramount has like over 70,000 employees. Warner Brothers has like 35,000 employees. They're going to probably end up in a situation where when all is said and done, they're not going to have like 52,000, which is when you add up the two numbers. It's likely they're going to probably end up with like 40,000 employees, closer to that. That's like over 10,000 employees being let go. And then obviously other things, probably like maybe they sell off one of the studio backlots, because do you really need both Paramount and Warner Brothers backlots, you know? Brogu saying, I really feel that Netflix is the one that truly wins out. Not only do they get paid for walking away, Paramount and Warner Brothers will be in a sea of debt. Exactly. That's what we were just talking about. Figure drawing with a question. I do not predict this may happen, but what if they sell DC Comics to Marvel Disney? That could be interesting.
Well, we'll see if the next few years are profitable for them, but who knows?
Yeah. I don't think there's any environment under which they sell DC, because DC is by far the most valuable piece of IP of anything they got,
Right.
maybe other than HBO. I don't think Paramount got paid that much money to simply sell DC. There's no way they would do that. I don't think Netflix would have done that. I don't think Paramount would do it. Certainly not. I mean, it's even to save the company. There's other ways to go about things. David Ellison will go to his father, and Larry Ellison will invest money into the company and write a bunch of checks like he's already been doing before
Daddy,
they decide
can
to
you
sell
help
DC.
me, please?
So,
Thank you.
yeah. I don't. Well, look, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter are incredibly valuable, but DC has a much higher ceiling. And even when you look at the box office presence and stuff, DC has got a lot more to work with. There's so much more there than what Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings has to offer. Like, just look at what they got coming up. You got the Harry Potter TV show on HBO, sure. There's no movies coming up. You know, the Fantastic Beasts movies sort of petered out. Lord of the Rings have a bunch of movies, a whole new trilogy planned, but like the Hunt for Gollum and stuff doesn't feel like it's like gonna be the level of success that the original Lord of the Rings trilogy had. And it's not like J.R.R. Tolkien is around to write more books and, you know, work on new stories in that world. So, yeah. WBD investor don't care about regular people. They only care about money hunter. Yeah, very much true. I think we're finding out that now more than ever, which I think was always the case. It's just it's becoming more apparent to those of us who don't necessarily pay attention to this stuff until something like this happens. But and that's fair. Like, it's not our job to pay attention to this stuff. This is, you know, we have other jobs to do in our daily lives. But this is a good TLDR of it all, John, in case you know, you missed the financial details. You guys are welcome to find this. If you want me to give you the link, I'll send you guys the link that we have for this on Threads. But I believe this, I mean, I forget the name of the account. Actually, it's NY feature on Threads. They did a great job of sort of putting together in a nice TLDR way of how this is all played out. So you could see that, you know, Paramount Skydance, they're paying a lot more money than Netflix, but it's not just because, you know, they're simply paying more. They're paying more because they're getting all the TV networks as well, and Netflix didn't want that. So you can tell that Netflix's deal was for $82.7 billion. Paramount's deal is for $110 billion. But that being said, John, if you go to the next slide, David Ellison thinks that's all worth, you know, the investment, because you look at the franchises. You got, you know, DC, you got Batman, you know, you got Wizarding World, Lord of the Rings, Mortal Kombat.
Batman and DC Universe,
I know,
2 separate ones.
But
then you have Tom and
true.
Jerry twice with the Conjuring universe in one of them. And then for Lord of the Rings, it has the Mortal Kombat logo. Can you tell this was AI, folks? Like, hello, they're not even trying. And why is Robert Downey Jr. Neo now? The fuck?
Yeah, that looks very, very weird. Maybe they should have done a Will Smith thing there instead. So yeah, Tom and Jerry twice. The Mortal Kombat logo is being used for Lord of the Rings, which is interesting.
Yeah, this is very bad AI, but like this is kind of just,
yeah.
It's just, let's just.
It's still a weird. Anyway. It's a nice overview because you see a lot of the franchises. And then as far as the timeline of the deal, we've talked about this. I mean, this has been going back all the way to last summer when David Ellison started to like unofficially bid or like show interest in Warner Brothers Discovery, and we were hearing rumors that David Zaslav might look towards selling the company off or looking for bidders. I think David Zaslav would have wanted to see Amazon and Apple enter the fight as well. They never wanted it, and I think the goal was that maybe Amazon and MGM and Apple wouldn't be interested unless, you know, they had divested all the cable networks, which is why they were going to do that. And maybe if they had gone through with that process, then Apple might be more interested, because if it was simply a studio that makes movies and a studio that makes TV shows and a streaming service, that's a lot more of what Apple might want versus a company that also has TV networks and cable and sports and all that stuff. Apple doesn't want that smoke. That's not what Apple does. Neither does Amazon. So I mean, even though they do have a lot of sports rights, they don't want to deal with all the other, broadcast networks and cable network stuff. Movie Spud, I did watch that episode, but we're going to talk about that in a moment. I do think like the John Campea show did a very high level overview, and a lot of it was editorialized on their part, which is fine. We all react to things, but we'll get into it. We'll get into the what's going to happen with the streaming services, or potentially could happen. Retro Edits, hello. How are you doing in the chat? We'll talk about Zack Snyder later, Anthony. Don't worry, we'll talk about that. Nobody's getting rid of HBO. Just for the record, HBO Max, by the way, HBO Max also, we'll get into that in a second. And Paramount doesn't just want CNN, because CNN would have been part of the Discovery Global spin-off company. If Paramount simply just wanted CNN, they could have literally just waited till the end of this year when that would have been available to buy for pennies on the dollar. So they're not just doing it for that. And I don't think they want to buy CNN to turn it into slop either. So again, that's a lot of misconceptions going around, and people reacting emotionally because there's a lot of political things around it and whatnot. But and again, Hunter, we're gonna get into the James Gunn stuff later. And just to let you know, the deal that James Gunn has in place right now is gonna stay the way it is. There's no changes happening today, tomorrow, the next week, or the next month. This deal isn't officially done until probably at least next year. So nothing is changing with James Gunn. Nothing is changing with David Zaslav right now. This just is the beginning of what will be still a very long process. And then just to kind of dispel the rumors around HBO Max being merged into, Paramount Plus or vice versa, none of that has been confirmed yet. And there was a report in Bloomberg a lot of people are quoting, but that report in Bloomberg itself was heavily exaggerated to the game of telephone across most other places. They're talking about what they actually said in the Bloomberg article, and the Bloomberg article is actually from October last year. We talked about it when it came out, in October, and even then it's not a direct quote from David Ellison. It's more just people inside Paramount who were anonymously being quoted. So, but we'll get into that. Don't worry about that. Paramount is not just with Saudi. The Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund is one of the several financiers of Paramount's deal. And it's a minority financier alongside Qatar and Abu Dhabi. But the majority of the money is coming from the Ellison family, and then other debt financing, that's basically using Paramount Skydance as collateral. Yeah, some people think it should be super fast tracked. Well, David Ellison doesn't. Oh, sorry, David Zaslav doesn't. We'll talk about that. And you know what, Eric? I did see the Max Landis news. It's in the quick hits, so don't you worry. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And again, Brogu, what you're talking about with the AI 30 projects a year, we'll talk about that later. There's a lot of misconceptions. I'm not defending Paramount. I'm not trying to say I'm not trying to glaze Paramount. I'm just saying a lot of that, misconceptions being shared on the internet is unfounded, because there's when you go to the source of the Bloomberg report, the article, it doesn't really say a lot of those things. If anything, it's it's sort of generalizing, and then people took that and ran with it. And the article's from October, so we'll talk about it in a minute. But John, I just wanted to quickly point this out, because there was this I don't know if you have pulled up the David Zaslav one. Actually, sorry, if you can go back to the, I don't know, did I give you the wrong link there? Do you have there's the Matt Stoller article from Substack. I think there's a push right now. No, not this one. I think you have it. Yep. So here's the thing. If you scroll down, the Attorney General of California actually posted something the other day, and they said that, look, these two Hollywood titans have not cleared regulatory scrutiny. The California Department of Justice has an open investigation, and we intend to be vigorous in our review. Now that being said, this doesn't guarantee, that the state attorney generals can get together, enough of them, to block this deal. But I think that's one of the routes if you're hoping that this deal doesn't go through. The regulatory approval may, be a hurdle that they might clear at the federal level, without a lot of hullabaloo, what happened with AT&T buying Warner Brothers, but I think the state attorneys can potentially make some noise and maybe force this deal to not happen. That's probably more likely where that resistance could come from, especially because those state attorneys will be fighting for like a lot of jobs in their states where Hollywood operates, like California and stuff. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I mean, look, this is not over yet. State attorneys in California and other states will probably contest this. Even the Department of Justice will probably still, they're doing an antitrust review of this deal. So, but you know, there was a Senate hearing that just got canceled, which was set to feature Ted Sarandos when the Netflix deal was a thing, and now that it's a Paramount deal, you know, the Republican senator just canceled the whole hearing anyway, which is goes to show you maybe like there is some partiality to Paramount. And so yeah, the politics side of this all is definitely very questionable. But then again, you know, like you said, John, there is definitely a dark side to this whole thing. But let's move on to talking about the business side of things. And this is where the David Zaslav thing comes in. There was a leaked audio from a phone call for that Business Insider released today, where it's basically David Zaslav talking about what he thinks.
Not true, but okay.
What are you talking about?
That one.
Oh, yeah. Netflix said they were going to release the movies from Warner Brothers in theaters. That was something Ted Sarandos made very clear. So he said multiple times over the last few months, and you know, very publicly, which would be a PR nightmare if you then just straight up flipped on that after the deal and finished. They were going to keep the 45-day theatrical window. They were going to release movies from Warner Brothers in theaters, then even let them go to a digital exclusive window where you can buy and rent the movie before it ever ended up on HBO Max or Netflix. So that was Netflix's commitment. And Paramount, you know, David Ellison has made similar commitments. So you would hope that they also honor the same commitments. But John, this was interesting.
Yes.
This David Zaslav leaked phone call that got released by Business Insider. I guess this is really where David Zaslav was revealing his true feelings on the whole thing and being just a lot more pragmatic, or maybe just very cold and calculated, another way to put it. He said Machiavellian is a very good way to say it. Yeah. Hello, Stacy. But yeah, he was saying in this phone call, I mean, this is again David Zaslav's words. He was saying, if Warner Brothers is going to survive, then we needed to be bigger and we needed to be global. I mean, I think he's referring to the fact like the HBO Max, for example, isn't available in every market abroad. They just got to the UK. They're just doing stuff in other, like, you know, Asian markets and stuff. Like Netflix is available pretty much everywhere. HBO Max isn't, not yet at least. And the same is true for Paramount Plus, by the way. But David Zaslav was saying this deal may not close. If it doesn't close, we get $7 billion and we get back to work. So yeah, very Machiavellian. So very Machiavellian.
Yeah, we got Zaslav cosplaying Lex Luthor right now, but like, sure, okay.
I will say though, the $7 billion thing is very clever though, because Paramount's previous breakup fee with Warner Brothers under their last offer when they went with the hostile takeover bid was for like around $5.8 billion, I think. So the $7 billion breakup fee really puts it on Paramount to get their shit together and make sure this deal actually goes through. But if they have to walk away from it, Warner Brothers gets to walk with $7 billion for their troubles, which, you know, a lot more than $2.8 billion that Paramount already paid Netflix for Warner Brothers to walk away from them. So yeah, David Ellison could be out $10 billion by the end of all this and not have Warner Brothers if it doesn't get approved by the regulators. So yeah, there's all that. But, you know, there was other parts of that phone call that were kind of significant as well, because in that same Business Insider leaked audio of the David Zaslav call, Zaz, as he's known in movie circles, revealed that in his mind, this deal will probably take at least 6 to 12 months for the merger to get completely done financially, as well as the regulatory approvals. He said the deal may not close. If it doesn't close, we get $7 billion, right? But he actually also said that it's going to take probably 6 months to a year, which if you go off of the Paramount deal, John, remember 6 months from now is right around September, and September 30th is the deadline after which the deal, which is currently for $31 a share, it starts going up by 25 cents a share every 3 months that it doesn't close. So David Zaslav is already saying this thing could take up to a year. So he's basically admitting that one of the reasons why they chose this deal over the Netflix one as the superior proposal is because they think that this deal isn't even as valuable as it's ultimately going to end up being for the shareholders of Warner Brothers, because that extra 25 cents per 3 months is going to get added on for probably up to 6 months. So again, very Machiavellian on the part of David Zaslav. So
100%.
yeah. Yep. And Eric, you're exactly right. David Zaslav has been doing this for years. I mean, he's been Machiavellian for years before he even got to Discovery, like with sports packages and stuff that he did before, getting settlements. Like the dude is, he's a shrewd operator in the business world, very cold and calculated, which, depending on where you land, I mean, the morality aspect of it, I don't think he cares as much about, as he cares about the money, so, and he's showing that here, for better or for worse. I think he liked the idea of being a Hollywood mogul, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be perfectly happy to walk away from all this with a golden parachute if David Ellison decides that Zaslav does not have a future at the new company. So I just saw you sent me a meme with like Tubi posting Patrick saying, "So you don't want my $36,000?" It's
No, not even 36,000, just $36.
$36? That's great. The memes are endless, and I love it.
God, I wish Tubi bought fucking
Yeah.
Warner Brothers for $36. That would have been better.
But Tubi's owned by Fox, right? So I'm just saying. Anyway, that would be a Murdoch's thing. Do you think Netflix would buy Warner Brothers Discovery when Warner Brothers Discovery stocks or their share dropped to $13 a share? Do you see Netflix rebuy? Well, Hunter, I don't think Warner Brothers stock is going to drop anywhere close to $13 a share, but it doesn't have to. Paramount just agreed to pay $31 a share and possibly more. So I don't think unless you mean like the future Paramount Warner Brothers combined company. If that happens, maybe, but that just would depend on if if David Ellison completely creators the company. So, but you know what, Enterprising, what you should be happy about and continue to be happy about is that Supergirl, Clayface, Lanterns, the Batman Part 2, Man of Tomorrow, all of those projects are still happening. Nothing is getting canceled. And even beyond that, I would imagine, and we'll talk about it later in the show, James Gunn and Peter Safran, so far, I don't think you rock the boat on something that's working, especially when it's making money. David Ellison wants to make money. I don't think he wants to crater the company. So he's going to keep the people that are doing a good job around, or at least that's been the intention so far. But yeah, we'll see. David is the man, says Brogu. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? That's where we'll leave it for now. Of course, this is an ongoing, developing, news story, so we'll keep following it. But you guys let us know. How are you feeling? I mean, 24 hours since the news broke, and well, Paramount will be the new owners of Warner Brothers Discovery. So, I mean, what's the name going to be? Is it going to be Paramount Warner? Is it going to be Warnamount or Para Warner? What about the streaming service? Is it going to be HBO Plus or Paramount Max, or
It's
like
probably
what's
just
going to
HBO, like HBO stuff is just going to be a channel in Paramount Plus, which is going to force people to buy Paramount Plus, which sucks because Paramount Plus is a shitty streaming service. So, ouch.
My prediction. Okay, this is based on my research. I'm not a Hollywood insider. I'm not a Wall Street analyst, but I'm just saying this. Based on everything that I have read so far and everything I know about these companies, and having also worked for Paramount within the past couple of years, I don't work for them anymore. I can tell you that HBO Max's, tech stack, the way their streaming service works, looks, functions, is built, is superior to Paramount technologically. David Ellison recognizes that. So what's most likely to happen is that they will merge the tech stack so that they have one programming team, one marketing team, one tech team, and one tech stack, which is basically all the code and everything that goes into running a streaming service. All of that will become one. And at the very least, they will probably start with keeping the two streaming services separate. Discovery Plus probably gets merged into HBO Max completely and, is done for as its own thing. And then CNN Plus probably goes away yet again, and get merged into everything else. It will be interesting to see if Anderson Cooper, who left 60 Minutes, now, is going to rejoin because it's all under the same company, but that's a different situation. I think it's going to start out with probably having Paramount Plus and HBO Max still be their own thing. But eventually, like you said, John, we're going to get Paramount Plus as the ultimate streaming service, and then HBO will be a part of that. The only question will be how they make that transition, because HBO Max actually has almost twice as many subscribers as Paramount Plus, and we don't know how much overlap there is between the two, meaning how many people have both services. So there wouldn't be like a net addition to when you combine the two companies or streaming services. So that will be interesting, but I'm pretty sure what they're going to do is they're going to initially keep the two apart and eventually merge them into a Paramount Plus that will look and feel a lot more like HBO Max today, because they're going to take the infrastructure of HBO Max and then merge it into, what's going to be known as Paramount Plus. But like you said, John, there will be probably a tile for HBO, there'll be a tile for Showtime, maybe something for Star Trek, something for DC, stuff like that. So yeah. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. Again, there's arguments to be made about, keeping it HBO Max and then having Paramount be a tile, because HBO is a very prestigious name. But I mean, even Warner Brothers Discovery took it out of the title. I mean, and yes, they changed it back, but I mean, you gotta wonder, like, maybe they'll make the same decision twice. So yeah, we'll see. By the way, Paramount Plus is definitely a better name than Peacock. I will tell you that. Sorry, man. But I definitely think, and I've worked with NBC Universal. I've worked behind the scenes and see how Peacock technologically is a very advanced streaming service. They do a really good job on the tech side of things, but Peacock is not a very good name. They should have called it something different.
I mean, literally, Peacock.
I know, exactly.
Like,
it's in the name.
Why? Because that's the peacock is the mascot, blah blah blah. But it's it's like calling it like urine penis. That's what my friend calls it. He calls it urine penis. Like, it's just like, it has cock in the name, it has pee in the name. It's like, come on. Beavis. Anyway.
Yeah, Brogu, exactly. I mean, if they do end up calling it Paramount Plus ultimately, then HBO will definitely be like a big part of it. So yeah, there's a lot to do with, because HBO is not just a pay TV thing anymore, it's a streaming service.
Damn,
that's the future. So
holy shit. I mean,
it will. Yeah. But anyway, you guys let us know what you think about all of that while we will continue to cover this, of course, as things develop. But John, we gotta get into some movie talk madness. Why don't you lead the way on this? We got Kratos. We gotta look at Kratos and Atreus for the first time.
Yes.
That's interesting. What did you think about this?
I mean, that's a word for it. That's certainly a word for it. So,
NBC Plus would have been better, Eric. Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah. But yeah,
your fake 915, absolutely.
This little thing right here.
Yeah,
if you God of War series.
Well, if you go to the actual post from on X, we can see the 4K version of it, which I don't know, more detail in 4K.
That's it. I don't think I wanted to see more detail of this, but it I'm just gonna.
It looks like
it looks AI generated. I'm sorry. It doesn't look right to me. Maybe it's because I'm not used to seeing Kratos in a live action setting, but it just doesn't look right. It just doesn't look right. It looks wrong to me. It feels like when I'm looking at an AI image, where it's just oh yeah, it's almost right, but it's not. Here it looks wrong. Atreus looks way too fucking young. He looks like a toddler. The beard is kind of, it's not big, dense, and rugged. It's kind of wispy. He's not Brian Hurst. He's not the dude's pretty muscular, but he's not maybe it's just the belt, but he looks like he has fat there instead of a yoked kind of vibe
Yeah,
going on.
I guess I guess we all wanted something a little more larger than life, and maybe that's what it is. It's
Maybe in motion it'll look better, but like it just
yeah.
to me it just doesn't look right. Like, which is a shame because like they nailed it. Like he looks like Kratos, but like it just like uh ouch.
It's a kid,
It just
dude.
like
Come
it
on.
just doesn't totally look right. Like maybe like this has nothing on the quality of the writing. Usually Ronald D. Moore is a very good writer, so maybe that could be better. Even though
He's
he played
probably
2
the
minutes of the
greatest.
game and then gave up because he's stupid, but like
I mean, he's
it
probably
just
the
doesn't look
greatest
quite
modern
right to
day.
me.
Look. I believe in Ronald D. Moore. He's probably the greatest modern day TV showrunner producer of all time. So, uh, between just Battlestar Galactica and For All Mankind, not to mention a million other things he's done, uh, this doesn't quite look larger than life, but like MTG likes it. It's that it's also it feels very TV showish. I feel like maybe it's just the way this image is shot. Maybe this needed to look more epic. Um, so maybe that's what it is. I just again, it's a first look. There's only so much we can get from just a photo as well. And like you said, John, maybe it will just look better in motion. But yeah, it's our very first look at God of War. It's going to be on Amazon Prime, and I mean, you can't really do a whole lot better than getting Ronald D. Moore to do your show. But
Well, you can get someone who actually played the fucking games and like
but
who's actually a fan
okay,
of
but
the
that doesn't
fucking
always.
source material.
I get it, but that doesn't
like,
always like
sure.
work out either. Like that doesn't always work out. Like it's I'm trying to think like who's the producer behind The Last of Us? Like he did Chernobyl, right? And I mean, I don't think he is like the biggest fan of the games, although I think he knows the games well. And then the creator of the game was involved until this latest season. So, uh, but I'm just gonna like wait for the trailer. Like for all we know, this could be amazing. It's just the first image isn't the most impressive thing ever. It's like you said, there's a bit of a cosplay effect to it. So yeah, who knows? Maybe he'll look more yoked in the show. It's almost like I think in like the Halo show that they did at Paramount Plus a while ago, Pablo Schreiber. That dude looked intimidating. Like I bought that shit. Like I was like, okay, between that and like and Riz and the other main
Also, not the
characters,
best
that
example
worked.
because the fucking
So,
Paramount Plus Halo show was ass. So,
but I'm just saying, like its looks can be deceiving, right? Like it could look great but not work great. It could look not so great and work great. Like it just, I'm saying like one thing doesn't lead directly to another conclusion. Like it's that's
anyway.
even trailers. There could be a good trailer for a bad movie. So we'll see when the trailer comes out for.
Speaking
God
of
War.
bad trailer and a bad movie, The Bride. Apparently, social media reactions promise horror fans a lush gothic romance. I mean, it's probably going to be a better fucking gothic romance than fucking Wuthering Heights, so it's got that going for it. Not like the bar is in hell, but like sure. But we have Jared Leto's Honka Honka The Bride coming out soon, and people are already praising the hell out of it. So,
Wait, is
I'm not
Jared
gonna...
Leto in this? Wait, no, this is.
No, it's not. I'm
This
joking
is
because it's
okay.
like
Christian
it
Bale, right?
looks
Okay.
like Jared Leto's Joker made a Frankenstein movie because that's exactly what this looks like.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, look, what's the name of the main Jessie Buckley? She might be an Oscar-winning actress by the time this movie comes out. So, and
Unlikely, but
these reactions. I mean, these reactions are saying this is an amazing film, like lush gothic romance, brutal.
I mean,
It
early
sweeps you off your
reactions
feet.
always say that, This is the best movie since The Dark Knight. Da, 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 da. So,
Isn't everything? Well, anyway. I personally can't wait to see this because I mean Maggie Gyllenhaal, behind the director's chair, is certainly I think so far all the early reactions are very promising. I'll give it a shot, and then I don't have many expectations honestly. So yeah, that is Christian Bale, Brogu. But I mean I trust that Christian Bale reuniting with his Dark Knight co-star for this movie, and then of course Jessie Buckley. This could be a great film. It's definitely very unorthodox, in terms of even just the story they're telling here, the bride of Frankenstein, not so much, Frankenstein's monster. So yeah, it could be fun. Could be fun. The reactions will make you believe that this could be a Best Picture nominee next year. So imagine if that happens, and if she wins this year, Jessie Buckley could win Best Actress for 2 years in a row. That's way out there in terms of total speculation, but we'll see. The reactions though are pretty promising. So the movie doesn't come out for I think a couple of more weeks, but we'll see. We'll see. How it turns out or not. There are a lot of Frankenstein projects recently, so there's that too. Maybe people will be a little tired of watching Frankenstein related media for a little while. But you know what, John? Moving away from The Bride, let's talk about the box office for Project Hail Mary. That is a movie that I think both you and I are very excited about. Not to mention Ready or Not 2.
I'm excited for Ready or Not 2 as well. That's
100%. I mean, I think they're coming out the same weekend, right? They're kind of counter programming each other. So
yeah,
I'm gonna see. Is that true? Am I thinking of the wrong thing? Let me take a quick look. So March 20.
No, it's a week apart.
Oh, it's a week apart. Okay. So March 20th, you get Project Hail Mary. No. It is the same week. Project Hail Mary and Ready or Not 2. Are you sure? Because Ready or Not 2 comes out March 20th, which is the same weekend as...
Oh, for some reason, I had Project Hail Mary for the 27th. All right, then I got to change my thing.
They're both coming out the same weekend, and now we got some early projections, John. So now we're about a month away from it, and less than a month away from it. That's literally 3 weeks away, and they're looking at a $45 to $55 million opening for Project Hail Mary, which
it was originally scheduled for the next week, but then it got delayed or pushed up, because it was originally for April, then it got pushed back to March, and then it got pushed back a week. So yeah,
right, yeah. So that was the Ready. You mean the Ready or Not? Am I?
Yeah, Ready or Not.
Right. But well, I mean, it's great counter programming. Not a lot. I mean, you can go see both as well. they don't really have a ton of overlap. But it captures a different audience almost. And horror movies always do well. And then it costs a lot less money to make Ready or Not 2 than it did to make Project Hail Mary. But the early projections say that Project Hail Mary, which was made for $150 million by Lord and Miller, it's going to open to anywhere between 45 to 55 million on its opening weekend. That, John, would give it the biggest opening weekend at the domestic box office, beating out Wuthering Heights' $50 million opening, potentially on the high end of that projection. Ready or Not 2 at 11 million plus is also not too bad. What did you think about these numbers? And then do you think between now and March 20th, Project Hail Mary, some people were saying, is going to be the first big blockbuster of the year. 55 million isn't clearly $100 million opening, but are you surprised by these numbers? And then do you think these numbers could go up or down for both movies depending on how well their marketing does between now and when the movies come out?
I mean, maybe for Hail Mary get a little bit better, but that sounds about right. It's not a big superhero movie. It's based on a book, and while that does have a niche fan base, that's not going to be oh my god, it's a sci-fi movie with Ryan Gosling by the guys Lord and Miller and written by Andy Weir. I don't know if that's not really going to get butts in seats, but it's not safe IP. It's just a book that a lot of people liked, but not going to be the multi-million-dollar fucking 100 triple digits blah 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 opener that a lot of people were suspecting it to be. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see if it has legs, right? Because with The Martian, I don't think it opened to, and before I say anything that I'm gonna get wrong, I don't think it opened to anything huge, not big numbers. The Martian opened to $55 million in North America in 2015, which was just shy of the October record previously held by, or currently held by even Gravity, 55.8 million. It had an A cinema score, so that played in its favor. And then ultimately, The Martian ended up finishing with $630.6 million worldwide. So That's not bad at all. Like Andy Weir wrote both books. If Project Hail Mary opens to 55 million, that would be pretty much the exact same number that The Martian opened to. And then if it's got the legs, then clearly it could finish out with somewhere in the 500 to 600 million dollar range. I think that's a good number, John. Like I think that's a good start. And then if the early reviews are to be believed, the early social media reactions, then a good cinema score, a good audience score could mean that Project Hail Mary could have a long runway to keep making money, especially because we're still a few months away, and still in March we'll be a few months away from really some of the big movies of the year coming out. So they will have time to make money, and I hope that they keep doing it, because like Scream 7 is going to open this weekend with almost $50 million. But while that could be record breaking for the franchise, I don't know like if that's gonna hold weekend to weekend, because the reviews have been pretty bad. They're really bad. So with Project Hail Mary, on the other hand, I have a feeling that the reviews will be a lot better. Similarly for like Ready or Not 2. So my hope is that even if it opens to around 55 million, which isn't exactly like a huge blockbuster opening, that's a pretty good number, and then hopefully it can leg out to like 500 million plus the box office, which would put it right in that territory where The Martian ultimately finished up. And Ready or Not 2 as well. I mean, if you look at the first movie's box office, Ready or Not was pretty small movie. It made 8 million in its opening weekend in 2019, ultimately finishing out with 57.9 million. So $11 million opening for Ready or Not 2 is already a jump up from the first movie, so that's gonna do just fine. But yeah, let us know what you guys think about the box office. I mean, Scream 7 opens this weekend, potentially to a record-breaking 50 million, but likely gonna crater after that given the reviews. And on the other hand, Project Hail Mary looking at a similar opening weekend, but hopefully it will last a lot longer. Kind of like GOAT the last few weeks has been doing well at the box office, and then even Wuthering Heights hasn't completely fallen off a cliff. So there's still some good movies out there. I hope Ryan does a song like he did in Barbie. I hope so too, man. You know, I would love to see that. But right now we're going to move on. John, I believe we got to get into some MCU Weekly. More Avengers Doomsday rumors to get into specifically.
Honestly, I'm more sick of this than the fucking Paramount deal. Shit. Fucking goddamn.
Walk us through some of these rumors, will you?
So, you know, apparently most, possible spoilers, and this is from Multiverse, so it's probably bullshit, but most impressive moment on paper, nothing like what the Golden Guardian of Good will do in a key scene in the film has ever been done in the MCU. I'll leave it at that, and there's no reason anyone else needs to feel compelled to spoil it outright. Epic. So, you know, and if the rumors are true, Doom will target Steve Rogers after coming to believe that he is the one responsible for the deaths of his wife and child. As you can expect, Steve living that life causes problems for the timeline. He, Peggy, and baby James are visited by non-God of stories Loki prior to the end of season 2 of Loki, and relocated and given the ability to access Loki / the TVA. Hiddleston and Evans were reported to have filmed scenes together at the house, so it does track. After a time jump, the relocation begins causing problems as well, starting the new universe toward Incursion, that Earth 828. So, also, My Time to Shine also says the Watcher is not in Avengers Doomsday. So
yeah, which I guess that's somebody either confirmed or denied that later too. So
No way.
No way. The Watcher's also not in the chat right now. So, but that's not the only rumor we got to talk about.
Love rumors.
Don't we all love rumors? We love spoiler. We love rumors. Yeah, the unmasking of Doctor Doom. Ooh, interesting. Let's get into that. This is, I think, building on the other report, because there's been rumors, going around for a long time that Doctor Doom will not be unmasked to the characters in the movie in Doomsday, but we will get to see, as the audience, Robert Downey Jr. take off the mask, and the Russos will play it cleverly and all that, so that the audience is in on it, but the characters will not. Which sounds interesting.
Oh my god, he's being played by the guy we already know he's being played at. with heavy makeup. Like, I don't know how that's... Oh my god, it's the person we thought! I don't know how that's much of a surprise, but okay. Oh my god, now we know what he actually looks like. Okay, cool. Got a badass over here. Like, alright.
Yeah, it will be interesting because I don't think, if you believe all the different leaks coming out, that they're going to give us an explanation as to why Robert Downey Jr. is playing the character, because everybody's thinking like, oh, is because they're going to explain that he's a variant, or he was a Tony Stark, or like he started off as a Stark or didn't get it, whatever like connection is. But it seems more and more likely that he's going to be coming from the Fantastic Four universe, the Earth 828. So they didn't have a Tony Stark clearly in their world. But they're not going to give us an explanation until maybe Secret Wars, which the amount of people have talked about this, or leaked it out. I mean, we'll believe it, sure, but again, it's still a rumor, so we'll just have to wait and find out for ourselves. Or maybe they'll reveal it in a trailer. We'll see. That might happen sooner than anything else happens. But yeah, let's keep on going, because now we move past MCU Weekly and we get into the fun part of the show. We get into the quick hits, John.
Indeed. And this is just...
This is the best thing.
Just the absolute most perfect way of describing this whole bullshit, nonsensical deal is Gregory Orr, who is a filmmaker who is a descendant of Jack Warner, one of the Warner brothers. He compares the Paramount deal to a shotgun wedding with your dumb cousin. If there is not a more perfect description for this deal, I don't want to hear it, because that's the best I've ever fucking heard of this whole shit. Absolutely, 100%. Gregory Orr, give him the medal, give him the internet. He has won the internet for today. You deserve the world. You deserve the company, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, I mean, they also in this article were mentioning there was an anonymous regional studio executive talking about how this deal financially doesn't make any sense because, for example, the amount of debt that this new company is going to be carrying, the amount of revenue that they bring in, the debt is a lot more than the revenue, and then when you do the math, they're going to end up spending potentially up to 70% of their revenue to service the debt for a long time. And they had, Warner Brothers Discovery paid off around $20 billion of debt that they got from the AT&T deal. And now they're going to have like almost $90 billion in debt. It took Warner Brothers 4 years to very aggressively cut costs to, clear $20 billion in debt. So just do simple math. It might take Paramount and Warner Brothers to like 2 decades almost to get rid of like the near $90 billion in debt. So yeah, shotgun wedding with your dumb cousin is probably a pretty accurate description in a lot of ways. It's kind of crazy when we were thinking like, oh, Discovery in what world is able to like fork up the cash to buy Warner Brothers? I mean, Paramount in what world has somehow forked up the cash to buy Warner Brothers? It's insane. Like, you wouldn't have thought this would be possible a few years ago. So here we are.
Yep. Anyway, now we move on to the next thing. HBO Max owns streaming charts as Night of the Seven Kingdoms and The Pit takes top spots. So congrats to them.
Yeah. I mean, it ended its season, I think, on a high note, like 9 million some viewers, which was like another record. So I mean, Samba TV doing a great job of covering this, and they measure it based on like Samba TV is integrated to a lot of smart TVs, so that's how they monitor this stuff. It's like Nielsen almost, but I mean, The Pit is doing great. Probably gonna be Emmy nominated again, maybe even Emmy winning, and that night show is just an absolute out of nowhere hit for the HBO Max, because I didn't think that was gonna be as big of a Game of Thrones show as it's turned out to be, but it's been making headlines for weeks now, so not surprised.
Yeah. But going back to Netflix, Netflix and Apple TV join forces to stream Formula One thrills, because as we keep saying, Netflix is winning. From Drive to Survive Season 8 to live race weekend coverage, 2026 brings fans closer than ever to the sport. It all started with, our boy Brad Pitt and Joseph Kosinski being like,
and Damson
Idris, and then
Kelly Condon, Javier Bardem,
and then they just kind of went off from there.
So a little more context. So obviously, Formula One Drive to Survive is a Netflix series. Apple, starting this year, has the US rights to the Formula One season. Like, basically every Grand Prix event is going to be shown on Apple TV. And so they're doing like a bit of a crossover thing where the latest season 8 of Drive to Survive, is now going to be on Apple TV as well as Netflix. So, you can see it on both platforms. And then the Canadian Grand Prix that's going to take place in a few months, that will be available to not only watch on Apple TV in the US, but also on Netflix. So they're doing a little bit of like sharing crossover thing, which again, great, good on Netflix, good on Apple TV. A lot of people know about Formula One because they watch the Drive to Survive show, and then a lot of the fans of F1 watch Drive to Survive to kind of fill in the gaps of their knowledge about the sport. So yeah, now you can kind of like see the two of them on the two different platforms. So I mean, Netflix is obviously the bigger streaming company, but I think this is a good opportunity for Apple to bring in more subscribers, and then it's also a good opportunity for Netflix to be able to like get that eventized sports event stuff going, like where they've been doing boxing events, and they got the Women's FIFA World Cup coming up on Netflix. So this is again another one of those things where they'll have now a Grand Prix, an F1 Grand Prix, the Canadian one, available for US subscribers this year, which is good. So yeah,
cool. I don't care about Formula One. Anyway, Chris Pine circling the lead opposite Emma Stone in Universal rom-com The Catch. Very nice. Very cool.
I mean, you know what? A lot of people still would say Chris Pine's The Catch.
Being the co-lead with Emma Stone, I'd probably do it too.
Get Apple TV if you haven't. It's probably the best streaming service outside of
It's
HBO
100%. Like, I can't think of a bad show on that. On that site.
Like, I try to find a bad show, and even that show is good. Like, it's hard. Like, it's genuinely hard. Unless you hate the Peanuts franchise, you're gonna have a hard time finding anything bad on Apple TV.
Yeah. I have Legacy of Monsters on my watch list. I have I don't watch like Severance is on my list. I know
Silo.
The Morning Show is apparently very good. It's just not my type of thing. So
same. But Fiona's seen it. Fiona's been catching up. That was like one of their shows they launched with. There's also Silos coming back with Rebecca Ferguson. They already got 2 seasons out, so I'm gonna be.
I thought that was on
waiting
Paramount
for
Plus.
No, that's a Apple TV.
You can't
thing.
keep track anymore, bro.
Sorry, no, it's all every prestige sci-fi. Not to mention, we're not even talking about what's the Foundation? Foundation's on Apple TV. Another great sci-fi, Isaac Asimov's Foundation.
Yeah, so. Lee Pace is in that, right?
Lee Pace. You get a lot of shirtless Lee Pace, so if you're into that kind of thing.
But yeah, cool, great.
Yeah.
Next up, still not so great. G.I. Joe taps rapist Max Landis to pen their next movie. So yeah, just goes to show that what nepotism will do to you in Hollywood. Max Landis is still coming back ferociously with apparently being the writer of one of 2 G.I. Joe movies that are coming out soon. There's another one that's by somebody else that's also coming out.
If you scroll down, so they do have this in this article. It's the one. Who was the person who walked away from a version of the DC show that they were the
Danny McBride was the other one. He's working on a separate script, and
which might get combined
down the line.
Down the line, right?
Last time he did an IP, it didn't turn out well. So yeah, this G.I. Joe is not looking good for the future. Whoops, daisies, yeesh. Okay.
I mean, apparently the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover is still also in the works. So a lot of G.I. Joe in the works, basically.
A lot of G.I. Joe, a lot of guys who shouldn't be in charge of franchises are writing them, and Max Landis is a piece of shit, and he sucks as a writer because he hasn't written anything good since Chronicle, and he's a rapist, so fuck that guy. Also, his dad's a piece of shit too, so because he got like 3 people killed and didn't get any, he got away with it. Whoops. Anywho, let's move on. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Cecily Strong, and dramedy Nanny Squatter near series order at Apple. Here's another probably going to be the next greatest fucking thing. Why? Because it's at Apple. So, you know.
I mean, Julia Louis-Dreyfus does not miss, and then you got Cecily Strong, who I think was in like that Schmigadoon, like it was a Schmigadoon show on Apple TV, which was like this musical sort of a show thing with Keegan-Michael Key. I don't know. So she's been doing stuff with Apple for a while, and then of course Julia Louis-Dreyfus does not miss. So yeah, love to see it. Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho. Next up, speaking of Joel McHale, who is recently in the newest Scream entry that just came out today, apparently his show Animal Control has been renewed for a 5th season at Fox. So if you wanted more, comedy office space hijinks, this is your show. Since, what was it? What was the show with the Super Trooper guys? Tacoma PD or whatever the fuck it was called.
I think so. Isn't it FD at Tacoma?
FD, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Tacoma FD, because that got canceled. But if you want, I've seen some clips from the show. It seems kind of funny. Not my thing.
agree.
But I do like Joel McHale. He's funny. So.
Yeah. Yep. Looks interesting. I mean, 5th season. I didn't realize it was running for that long. Like, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But Stars apparently ends 2025 with 17.6 million U.S. subscribers as losses narrow following Lionsgate split. I'm just gonna say, haha, fuck you, Stars. This is what you get for canceling Ash vs. the Evil Dead. Get fucked. Anyway, yeah, they can go fuck themselves.
It's fine. I mean, look, they split from Lionsgate. They're not going to be around on their own for too long, but they seem to be doing okay for now, so that's good. Yeah.
Anyway, going back to better shows and better networks, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms finale hits 9.5 million viewers in 3 days, setting another series record. I've heard nothing but great things about this show, even though it started off kind of weird and kind of gross, like people pooping and peeing themselves for whatever reason. But then everyone's like, oh my god, it's like the greatest thing ever. I still have no interest, but it seems like more my type of show than what like Game of Thrones was, because it's kind of has that Superman vibe of like just kind of a simple fun story of like kind of a himbo knight just kind of doing good things because he's a good guy type stuff.
Yep.
Like, all right, I could buy that. Like, I still won't watch the show, but I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like, I'll buy that.
No, I'm in the same boat. I like what they got going. The vibe of it is definitely much more what I would like to see. Again, it's not like a lot of what the Game of Thrones core audience you would imagine would be looking for, but it's done so well, and it's managed to make headlines, like with whether for the good reasons or the bad. So yeah.
What did I have to say about historical accuracy? I like historical accuracy.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that very much.
Yeah.
Anyway,
speaking of a good finale.
Speaking of a terrible finale, if this is the last one, it looks like it will be from that trailer. But Scary Movie 6 trailer leaks online, and every line will be crossed. So, as the Wayans promised, the next Scary Movie, although not called Scary Movie 6, is just going to be called Scary Movie, as sort of making fun of the whole requel thing, was going to debut in front of Scream 7, since that, parodying the Scream franchise is what made Scary Movie famous. So, kind of an interesting thing. It got leaked onto the net. Even Wayans himself leaked a trailer onto the internet. I watched it. It looks like dog shit, just like every other Scary Movie. So, I'm sure people will like it. It'll find its audience. But yeah, I think this is indeed a trailer. It was just painfully unfunny. Because the trailer reminded me of like dad humor. Like, it's just like boomer humor. Like, this is a movie not for safe spaces. And it's like, oh my god, he stabbed her. He stabbed they, them. And it's like, oh my god, shoot me now. It's like that typical, like, kind of like, trying to offend humor that's not funny. It's just stupid and mean. It's just like, it's not even mean. It's just not funny. Like it's
Right.
going out of its way to offend people, and instead of trying to be funny, it's just stupid. But because it's just like Naked Gun had the same kind of jokes, but it wasn't like in your face, like trying to be like, we're not settling for safe space. It was just naturally funny because Akiva Schaffer understood what made that stuff funny. So, yeah, this just looks like painful, crappy, stupid humor that should have stayed dead in the 90s. Like that kind of thing. It looks like a bad Friedberg and Seltzer movie, which is, if you don't know what that is, it's like the guys who did like Disaster Movie, Meet the Spartans, like the Hungover Games and like shit like that, which are like bottom of the barrel
Dude,
crap fest, which
I
are just pop
forgot
culture
about
references. The movie,
Oh my
yeah, it's just like
God.
it's just painfully unfunny. I'm sure it'll have its audience. I'm sure people will enjoy it. That's fine. I never really liked the Scary Movie franchise. I've seen bits and pieces. It's just the comedy is not for me, but comedy is very subjective. So, you know,
It's
that
definitely-
movie, that's another one.
I mean, it was definitely right up, like that kind of comedy feels like it's right up the Wayans brothers alley, though.
Yeah, no. It's right up there.
It's-
Like
it's
kind
very
of the
on brand.
low-brow, lowest common
Yeah.
denominator kind of humor. That was just like white chicks and shit like that. That's not for me. But people like it, so that's cool. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, back in my day, kind of stuff. Yeah, but
Right.
I mean, I like maybe a couple things made me chuckle, like seeing Anna Faris look like Laurie Strode from the new Halloween movie. Like, all right, that's kind of amusing. But now I'm not saying I don't like lowbrow stuff. Again, Naked Gun, that's like the new Naked Gun with Liam Neeson. That was like relatively lowbrow humor. I like that sort of thing. Like, you know, I like lowbrow stuff, but I think this is just even too lowbrow even for me. But yeah, looks dumb, but people will enjoy it, and that's fine. Similar with the new Scream movie. Speaking of, like, I'm sure people enjoyed it, but like it just looked like a bad, cheap knockoff of what Scream made fun of. So yeah. What I love about that joke is that it outlasted the thing that it was making fun of. Like, I love how people associate "What's that" more with Scary Movie than the initial Budweiser commercial. That's kind of funny. I will not gonna lie about the idea of like Scary Movie became so iconic that the jokes in those movies are now considered more attributed to those movies than the things they were making fun of. So yeah. But I don't know if you like any of the Scary movies, Dan, or if you're gonna go see this. But
I mean, probably not enough to go see it, but it's interesting. Like you said, humor is very subjective, so we'll see if this makes any sense. I might check it out at home. I don't know if I'm gonna make it out to the theaters for this.
It definitely seems like a straight to streaming movie. You know.
Oh, does it? Yeah. Well, I mean, in that case. Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for the quick hits, guys. No more quick hits. No more news. Now we can move on to DCU Daily and do stuff in regards to that. So, Dan, are we #blessed at the beginning, or are we not?
Oh, always. We're always blessed at the beginning.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see
Right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts.
Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you, really, I'm doing sublime. I never wait in the stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all in the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto. Hunka hunka!
All right, welcome on into another episode of DCU Daily. We get into the DC news proper. Thanks for tuning in. If you are watching live, if you're not watching live, thank you for tuning in after. Yeah, It's DCU time. We're getting into it. What did James Gunn say? Well, James Gunn hasn't really said much recently, so we'll be talking about other stuff though involving James Gunn nonetheless. Victory Mind keeps hope alive. Yeah, we'll keep hope alive, much like Superman would tell you to do. But yeah, there's a lot to get into, of course. If you are watching for the first time, I am your host, Daniel. John will be back up with us in a moment. We're going to get into a lot of the Zack Snyder interview and what he said about not only, his view on the DCEU, the Martha moment, the Snyderverse and his trilogy of DC movies, as well as like what he thinks about potentially, coming back to DC down the road. And he did have a few things to say about James Gunn's Superman and like what James Gunn is doing with the DCU. So we have a lot of that to dive into. Of course, we also have to talk about what Paramount plans to do with DC Studios. So there's that as well. But what we will do to start is we will get into some of the DC quick hits. We got some of y'all in the chat talking. Eric is saying, I'm watching from the future. Booster Gold is sitting across from me. Nice. Eric, that's awesome, man. Hopefully, hello, Booster Gold.
Is he played by Kumail Nanjiani?
Is he? Please do tell. Hope may dim, but it's still there. Yes, absolutely. Speaking of hope, we do have a Saint Walker fan casting coming up after DCU Daily, and that, of course, is a Blue Lantern, and they're all about that hope. So, yeah. Nice crossover there. Anyway, John, what are you most excited about with regards to
I'm
DC
excited
today?
to talk about Zack Snyder praising the fuck out of James Gunn. Eat it, Snyder cultists. Get fucked. You're trying to do all this shit. It don't mean nothing. Zacky boy likes James. Get fucked. Anyway, let's jump into it.
Yep. We got a couple of quick hits though to start, John. Why don't you walk us through the quick hits
Although,
first?
speaking of Zacky boy, I will say that's a good looking picture of Henry Cavill, if I do say so myself.
I gotta agree with you there.
So I will say, like,
true.
the S looks weird. Like, it looks like it's like a prototype. It just doesn't look right. Like, the threads look like more outlined. I don't know what the wording for that is.
It's weird. I think, you know what it is? I think that's the version of the suit like that's sewn back together after the piercing by the kryptonite spear.
Maybe.
I always
I
thought
don't know,
that's what that was. Am I wrong about
maybe
that?
entirely possible, but
yeah, like
yeah,
I always
looking
thought
good.
that's what they were going for. But I mean, it's because you guys tell me, like,
to be
the
fair,
S
he always
look
had
like
the
that?
S where it was like kind of split in between them.
Was it? Okay.
It was always kind of like that. I don't know why it was like that, but it just like the
stands
black
out more.
outline looks more pronounced.
Well, and yeah, the way the contrast in this photo definitely you can see, but still banger photo. Yeah, and James and Zack have been friends for years. And I mean, they've praised each other before this too. So, but we'll get into it. Zack was replaced by James Gunn in disguise. I love Man of Steel, but that's also just me, Caleb.
But yeah.
Yeah, we all use
next up,
right
Hot Toys has revealed its take on Frank Miller's Superman. Not everyone's probably one of the worst adaptations of Superman. But we got the God, okay, say what you will about Dark Knight Returns, one of the greatest Batman comics of all time. Nobody's praising that art, and nobody is praising Frank Miller's Superman because it's just like, I think most people can agree, like, him being like a fucking like a pawn for the U.S. government. I'm like, bull fucking shit. Superman fucking would never be. But Frank Miller famously fucking hates Superman, so but it's a good figurine.
That hairline though,
but
I mean, I mean, the Hot Toys are always the details.
Yeah, that chin though,
point.
it fucking puts Bruce Campbell to shame. Goddamn.
You're not wrong. So, but yeah, I do love the look of it. I probably will never want to fork up the cash for it, but yeah, love to see it. Love to see it.
Looks cool. So yeah, that's kind of about right for Frank Miller's Superman. Anyway, but yeah, but then here you have the Dark Knight Returns Batman figurine, which still looks kind of iffy, but you know, yeah, looks okay.
No, it's It's impressive, that's for sure. It's impressive, and I mean the level of detail. You're not gonna do any better than these Hot Toys. So that's always.
Although Sideshow is pretty good with what they have.
That's you know what that's also true. It's fair enough. That's also definitely true. Yeah. Nah, give me Superman and the horse riding pants and boots from The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Returns is the best story since The Dark Knight. I think you're confusing it with The Dark Knight Rises, but fair enough, Caleb. Fair enough.
But next up, anyway, in terms of going back to merger stuff, yeah, didn't you want to fucking hear more about this shit? But apparently Paramount plans to keep a merged Warner Brothers largely intact, so that is certainly something.
I mean, John, actually, to set the table here, there's been a bit of he said the game of telephone being played around on the internet for the last 24 hours, I want to say, and a lot of it has to do with remember like in October when I want to say that's around when David Ellison's Paramount had probably submitted their first and second official bid for the company, and so there were reports going around about like how Paramount is going to treat Warner Brothers and like what they're going to do with the people at Warner Brothers in a post-acquisition scenario. Netflix was putting, similar information out there about like what they would do. Of course, we now know what Netflix would have done because they detailed that out once the deal was signed in December. Paramount, for their part, David Ellison had talked about some of the stuff publicly, but not everything. This is the report from October that Bloomberg put out. Now, Bloomberg is behind a paywall, so most people don't have access to it if you just look for it. So a lot of places have used the article here and quoted it, inaccurately, actually, because the headline, by the way, is good. Like, Paramount plans to keep a merged Warner Brothers largely intact, and it's not because they're quoting anything directly from David Ellison. John, if you can zoom in and scroll down a little bit, I just want to kind of go through. There's a bless you. If you just do like a search for just scroll down a little bit further. There, okay. Nope. There it is. There's the paragraph. So those two paragraphs, obviously we know that they don't plan to sell off the cable networks. They're going to merge all of them under one umbrella. But the big paragraph, if you want to highlight the one Ellison plans to take advantage of new technologies, this is what's been misquoted a lot of places. Because I'm sure you've seen like David Ellison wants to make a ton of movies using AI, and they want to put out, they want to keep James Gunn and Peter Safran around, which by the way is not directly said in this article. It's inferred by way of what is said in the article, and the headline itself says that they're going to keep the divisions largely intact. So you would imagine they would keep James Gunn and Peter Safran in charge of DC Studios. And he did promise that
very early on, so maybe he's probably just keeping that promise.
But as far as the whole like AI thing, this is the part of the article a lot of other outlets are misquoting almost, or just playing that game of telephone with. So in the Bloomberg article that you're looking at here, it says Ellison plans to take advantage, David Ellison does, of new technologies like artificial intelligence to produce more films and TV shows. He's targeting 30 films a year for the combined businesses, so both Paramount and Warner Brothers, which by the way, Paramount, their goal this year is to do 16 theatrically released movies, and incidentally, Warner Brothers Discovery has also been looking at the very minimum 16 movies this year. Warner Brothers is more on target to meet that goal, whereas Paramount not so much. So between the two studios separately, they're looking at releasing around 32 movies, and then David Ellison plans to do pretty much roughly the same number post-merger, so that wouldn't change much. According to this article, again, which is not directly quoting David Ellison, but is quoting sources close to David Ellison at Paramount anonymously. But yeah, so this is one of the people that they talked to who got quoted here anonymously, said this about the number of movies. Now, the 42-year-old son of Oracle Corp, according to Bloomberg, the co-founder Larry Ellison, well, basically Larry Ellison, of course, is the father of David Ellison, has been a big supporter of releasing films in theaters, seeing it as the best way to build long-term franchises. So they're saying that David Ellison wants to keep putting movies in theaters, which David Ellison has said himself multiple times. So I think the part that a lot of places have misquoted is that David Ellison wants to use or take advantage of new technologies like artificial intelligence to produce more films and TV shows. A lot of people have taken that to mean, oh, it's gonna be, you know, like Oracle owns the U.S. version of TikTok, which is owned basically, you know, Oracle is David Ellison's father, Larry Ellison's company. So they're gonna be, you know, using all that AI and stuff like ByteDance has been doing with what is it, Seed something that's been creating all that AI slop recently, to make like big Hollywood movies that are made by AI. Here's the thing, like John, we have all seen those Coke commercials the last couple of years, and despite what Coke will tell you, that shit does not look like it was not made by AI. So I think we're still a long ways away from anything that's going to look that convincing. And the big thing here that I wanted to focus on the DC side is, again, this is inferred from the Bloomberg article because, as you see here, they're quoted here on Everything DCU. From the article itself, Paramount wants to keep the creative teams of the two studios while consolidating some of the marketing and distribution, according to people familiar with his plans, his being David Ellison's plans. So what that means is they're going to keep the creative leadership largely intact. And, you know, you don't need two different distribution departments. You don't need two different marketing teams for Warner Brothers and Paramount. Probably legal teams, HR teams, administration, you know, administrative roles. A lot of those roles will get consolidated. That usually happens in any merger or acquisition scenario. It's very unfortunate because there's a lot of real people losing their jobs. So that's terrible position to be in. But yeah, I mean, John, are you surprised that, because this is again from an article that came out in October, and it seems like it's just resurfaced now that you know, the Paramount has ultimately ended up winning the Warner Brothers bidding war?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there would be a lot of fucked up PR if it's like, oh yeah, I lied, bye, but like I'm sure it would be a slow, painful death if, you know, it would just be like, oh, we're gonna just do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do this, and then eventually they'll also probably do the thing. If I were to take a guess, if Ellison really wants to get rid of James Gunn and Peter Safran, he would like do things like start micromanaging and like doing fucked up shit to like skirt that vision of James Gunn, and eventually James Gunn's like, all right, fine, bye, I'm not dealing with this. So then he leaves, and then he can put one of his buddies in charge of DC Studios, and then we'll get garbage DC movies like we did in yesteryear. So
yeah. I mean, actually, you know what? That's a very good point. If you click on the photo, so we can kind of like talk about it for a moment. I just wanted to focus on James Gunn and Peter Safran specifically. Do you see a scenario? Because, like, for example, in the limited time that David Ellison has been in charge of Paramount, they have gone over the heads of some of their creative leaders to make decisions, you know, for the sake of like efficiency. I think there was a situation where they sort of like, oh, we're gonna give this movie to this different filmmaker because they probably have a better idea how to do this, and it's sort of like undermined a division leader. So there's been a couple of examples of that over the last 6 to 8 months that they've had Paramount. Do you think there's a scenario where somebody comes to David Ellison directly and says, or like, you know, goes up over the heads of Peter Safran, James Gunn, and says, we want to make a Batman movie or something, and David Ellison says, let's do it, you know, let's do it, let's go make this thing, and then they go ahead with that? Do you think that's the kind of thing that would lead to James Gunn and Peter Safran being like, if you're gonna do this, then we don't need to be here, like it, or do you think there's a common ground there that David Ellison could find and his team to work alongside, you know, or with Peter Safran, James Gunn, and sort of compromise?
Possible. I mean, I think David Ellison will look at it from a business point of view at first, at the very foremost of that. If 2026 is a profitable year for Warner Brothers, then he'll be like, okay, cool, you guys are staying on for the time being, we're gonna move this along properly. But if it's not, then he'll be like, well, okay, we'll keep you on for as long as your contracts have. Either release the movies that are going to be released, like, or tax write them off, like what Zaslav was doing when he became CEO, and then just kind of move on from there, let it just stay, get new people behind it. We don't know. And then just kind of go on from there. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think like it just depends when Paramount actually obtains Warner Brothers, because we don't know. We don't know if it's going to take 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year and a half. Most likely it's going to be around a year. So we're just going to have to wait and then see where we are a year from now. And then David Ellison is like, all right, James Gunn and Peter Safran, 2026 was profitable. Okay, show me another profitable year. Or if it's like, or if it's not profitable, be like, okay, well, you're on thin ice. It wasn't profitable. Show me a profitable year. And then 2027, we'll see if that is or isn't. And if it is, then I assume they'll probably stay on. If not, then they'll probably be booted. Nothing personal, just on the grounds of I want money. I'm literally swimming in debt right now. Give me money. So, then we'll kind of go on from there. But it's really too early to tell. Literally, it's not even a case of the ink hasn't dried. The ink hasn't even been written yet. The ink hasn't left the pen yet. Like, we're not even close to talking about this conversation. I just think Ellison is like, we'll keep them on for now, boom, and then that's it. That's all we have to say about that, because that's all there is to say. Netflix literally just backed out, and Paramount literally is in the middle of like getting the company, which is probably going to be like for sure on the 20th, because that's the shareholder meeting. But like even then, it's probably going to be even earlier than that. But still, it's not going to be. We're not going to know anything for months and months, let alone like when this actually finishes up, like all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, then you have my permission to die. But then until then, we have nothing to talk about, because it's just, we don't know. It's like anything happens in business. Oh, they have until fucking 2027. Yeah, as you said, contracts can be bought out. We don't fucking know that for sure. So it's just about the profitability of it all. Like, are they profitable? Are they not? We'll see.
Yeah, it's the one scenario that I can see kind of playing out here is if James Gunn and Peter Safran, who are under David Zaslav, right now they report directly to the CEO, David Zaslav. They've got a direct line. There's no middle management between them and David Zaslav, who's the head of all of Warner Brothers Discovery. And similarly, like Casey Bloys at HBO has the same thing, where he's got a direct line. He directly reports to David Zaslav. That allows DC Studios and HBO to basically function independently from the television group and the film production, pictures group at Warner Brothers, and do their own thing. Like at ESPN does the same thing at Disney. CNN is sort of similar. Like CNN's Mark Thompson directly reports to David Zaslav. The question will become like, where is all of that gonna happen? Yeah, the merger agreement hasn't been signed yet by Warner Brothers. So that's just to let you guys know, there isn't an official contract yet signed between Paramount and Warner Brothers. But it is, unofficially, like that's where we're headed. So that's that. But just be aware of that. Like it's not gonna change. Like I think something crazy would have to happen for them to not go ahead with that. But that's where we're at today. But that all being said, I think, John, the big concern for me would be if Peter Safran and James Gunn, who currently have that direct line to David Zaslav, if they don't get that level of independence, and if they get like merged into like the larger, Paramount Warner Brothers Pictures group, or whatever that combined entity is going to be, including Paramount Pictures, Warner Brothers Pictures, New Line Cinema, and any other like movie studio that they would have as part of it, that would create a situation where they're no longer reporting directly to David Ellison. They would have to go through at least one, if not two layers of middle management. That might be the situation where, again, like they might not even get to David Ellison for an approval on something. Can you imagine if they want to do, I don't know, like a Flash movie, and the person who they report into directly says no, but maybe David Ellison might want to say yes, and they're like, well, in the past we would have gone directly to David Zaslav, and then he would say yes or no, and then we would know for sure what we're going to do with it or not. That's what I would worry about, because I would think that if they end up in a situation where they don't have that direct line to David Ellison, that will probably undermine them a little bit. That being said, Kevin Feige also doesn't have a direct line to Bob Iger or now Josh D'Amaro. He technically sits under the Disney Pictures Group, which is the Walt Disney Motion Picture Group, which is headed by Alan Bergman. But they've had a pretty good working relationship for years. So, and then largely Kevin Feige is able to go to the CEO of Disney directly when he needs to. So it's not quite the same thing, but that would be my concern. So this again is a question that, I mean, by the way, hello, Johnny. We don't really have an answer to it because David Ellison hasn't put out a public statement about this. And what we were talking about, oh yeah, Mr. Terrific film is another example that you would think about. But look, David Ellison is a movie producer. At his core, that's where he started. So I would give him the benefit of the doubt and let him prove us, different. Like, so until he, makes some really bad decisions, I mean, I don't want to prejudge, but I would be worried that if Peter Safran and James Gunn are not given the same level of freedom that David Zaslav has given them so far for DC Studios, that might become the problem ultimately, which forces James Gunn and Peter Safran to walk away, because that's that. And then what would be worse is like what you suggested, John, if David Ellison or somebody else like overrides them and decides, oh, we're gonna give Brett Ratner a chance to do a Static Shock movie, even if James Gunn and Peter Safran have no idea about it or don't think it's a good idea. That's the other reason why I think this might not work. But I don't think James Gunn walks away on day one of the new company. I don't think Peter Safran walks away on day one. Like I've heard, like I think I was watching the John Campea show. They were like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna go back to Marvel, and then Kevin Feige's gonna welcome him with open arms and all that stuff." I'm like, I don't think it's that simple. And also, can you imagine the PR nightmare that would be of rebooting DC again, and then all the goodwill that James Gunn and Peter Safran have built for DC under their leadership, that it would just get wiped out overnight? I mean, that I don't think Paramount would want to deal with that, and I don't think David Ellison would think that's the right thing to do. It's more likely to happen, in a way where it's more indirect, but I don't think David Ellison's first move, one of his first things he's going to do is, fire James Gunn, Peter Safran, or bury them away in like a pile of bureaucracy at the new company. I would just be interested to see if they end up having somebody in between them and the CEO of the new company, which presumably would be David Ellison. So that would be my concern. But so far, it looks like the intention is for Paramount to keep James Gunn and Peter Safran around in their current roles, which is good. It's good to start there. Paramount don't have $200 billion in debt, Hunter Iggy. That's simply false. They're going to end up with around $100 billion, somewhere in the range of 87 to 90 billion. They don't have $200 billion in debt. Not with the new company, not the current company, so that's not a true number. But you know what, John? We're going to keep an eye on this, of course. If David Ellison talks about DC, maybe he says that DC Studios is going to be our rendezvous with destiny or something like what David Zaslav is used to saying. We'll get into that a little bit more. But I did want to talk about Zack Snyder and DC. Because, John, I don't know if you saw this, but,
I did see
Josh Horowitz, he kind of teased it on Thursday that he was gonna be releasing something, with Zack Snyder, and ultimately what it ended up being a whole podcast episode of the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, where Zack Snyder popped in, talked about a bunch of his projects, including a lot of DC stuff, both what he worked on and what's currently happening under James Gunn. So let's dive into all that. And the first thing I wanted to do here is just kind of play the clip a clip from the podcast, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll get into the many different things that Zack Snyder ultimately ended up saying. But I figured like a good starting point would be this clip from the podcast, again from the Happy Sad Confused podcast by Josh Horowitz. So let's start there and take a listen to what Zack Snyder had to say about James Gunn, as well as his trilogy of movies in the DCEU and what he thinks about the future of the DCU.
Very kind. He said you've been very
James
kind
is
to him,
cool.
James Gunn.
Look, I wish them all the best, and I don't have any. Like, it is what it is. It kind of it's a weed. That 3-movie trilogy is a weed that just won't die. And so it doesn't need to, like, it grows on its own. It has its own life, and it is not concerned, I don't think, with James's Superman, which is amazing, and all the best to them. And I can't wait to see the next movie, and it's just awesome. It just really, to me, it's just not the same thing. It's just like a different thing.
Is there anything when you saw James's version that only James could do in that way that you appreciated in his take
Of course, James is singular in his storytelling, in his ability to kind of channel sort of mythological pop culture into like what I would consider just iconic and very particular point of view that's both poignant and funny and all the things, and I think he's like he's the best at it that I can think of, and I think that he's a great steward of that world. So that's good. That's great for fans.
You both are class acts. I'll leave you.
Well, Brogu, I think we all have an appreciation for Zack Snyder's work. Maybe just not all of his work, but that our opinions vary. John, we're gonna break this down into all the different things that Zack Snyder kind of touched upon, but I just wanted to kind of quickly mention Zack Snyder refers to his trilogy of movies in the DCE almost like he says literally it's a weed that just keeps on growing and never dies. I saw the initial reactions vary immensely for that, where some people were like, oh shit, is he like kind of calling out the Snyder cultists, or is he talking about it more like it's like its own thing?
Like it's just kind of this thing that's gonna like kind of goes on and on and on,
right,
and won't die.
Yeah, and I think he also when Josh Horowitz does the follow-up question, he says, look, I think he just thinks of them as two separate things. Like he doesn't look at it as like, because I know there was this narrative for a while that James Gunn and Peter Safran were rebooting the DCEU into the DCU, doing a soft reboot. I think it's more clear now than ever that they're like two different things, right? Even though there's been some crossover, like some characters have moved across and stuff, but clearly like with what they did with retconning the ending of season 1 of Peacemaker, it seems like James Gunn has started to kind of create more of that line in the sand, which is completely fair. I think for both for the good of the DCEU and the DCU to create that separation, but yeah, ultimately I think Zack Snyder was fairly even-handed about this, about what he talked about. But I guess let's talk about, we'll break it down into like all the different pieces. What he said about James Gunn. He said he's the best at what he does, and that Superman was amazing, and he's excited for Man of Tomorrow. John, are you surprised by this? Because we know that Snyder and Gunn have been friends for a while. They even did that whole world peace photo last year that we kept talking about.
I think he's just like kind of giving all of his comments, and he's just saying, hey, this is how it is. He's like, either he is so blissfully unaware of the stuff going on and how people are treating his fucking movies, or he just really doesn't care and doesn't want to give them more fire, or maybe there's another reason. I don't know, but I think this is just him finally clearing stuff up and wanting to just kind of move on, but the weed keeps growing, I guess.
I mean, fair enough. And I don't know if you're being facetious, MTG, with your comment there. These cultists literally are worshiping Zack if he's the Jesus of directors. I know. Well, there's the internet has a place for a lot of cults to grow, I suppose. But yeah, the other thing that Zack Snyder said, if you can move forward to the next point I wanted to touch upon, is he reflected and much more directly than I think we've heard from him in a while about his work that he has done, and then how well, this is the full quote about Superman. So, again, we listened to it, so I don't think we need to sit on this. If you can kind of move forward to the to Zack Snyder talking about Batman v Superman and all the backlash, I think that was interesting. And I wanted to get into that a little bit. If you can, do you want to kind of read out what he said? Because Zack Snyder was pretty strongly defending his work. And I agree with some of what he said, but the rationale behind that Martha moment still doesn't quite add up in my mind. And I defend Batman v Superman.
He said, I think the director's cut, which is the ultimate edition of BVS, is really the movie that I was trying to make. It's a better movie than the movie that was theatrically released. That's my feeling. I still love the theatrical release, and I'm not mad at it. I just think that the real intent that Chris Terra and I had was in the director's cut. My 100% honest reaction to BVS and how it's received in the world is that, do you really want a movie that had all the edges shaved off by the focus groups? Do you really want a movie where decisions have been made in the boardroom, where tested ideas are being rendered for your enjoyment? Do you really want the Kmart version of your story? Is that what you really want? I would argue that's fine to make fun of Martha, Snyder added, addressing the mockery that surrounds the scene. It is true in canon that Batman and Superman's mothers are both named Martha. That is a fact of the comic book world. Whether or not that is a thing, you feel like Batman with the hovering spear of destiny over Superman's heart. Those words, seeing what he believes is a creature that he demonized in his mind. 100% there is no chance that anyone would give a fuck about BVS if we had done the straight down the road, Avery commercial version, a colorful, bright, and shiny movie. It wouldn't be BVS. It would have been B and S. I think he means as in bullshit BS. What he's trying to say there. So.
I mean, John, your thoughts on this? Do you care to comment, agree, disagree with any of that?
It's just I just don't think the scene was all that executed all that well. It's just I think from an acting and directorial point of view and from a writing point of view, it just didn't work. Why the fuck would Superman call his own mother Martha? And then on top of the fact, it's just the fact that Ben Affleck's Batman just goes full crazy with it, which is kind of understandable, but he goes so mad. He goes 110% with it, and it's just it's a little awkward. And then Amy Adams, it's his theme, and it's just oh, okay. Amy Adams not trying to act well there, but okay. It's just a very weird and awkward.
Why'd you say that name?
It's
his mother's name.
On paper. Sorry. On paper, it works. I get what he was trying to do. I don't think it works in execution, but I understand what he was doing, and I get it, but it's just on the surface, it's just our moms have the same name. Did we just become best friends? Yep. And it's just that's kind of the vibe it gives off, whether you like it or not. I can't the only way I can really say if you want a good execution of that scene, watch the scene in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 when they're duking it out on the moon, Sonic and Shadow, and you do that whole scene of oh, shoot it right here, and then he remembers Tom's conversation, he snaps out of it, and it's very good. And I'm I was literally in the theater watching that scene. I'm that's literally the Martha scene, but done well. Holy shit, they did the Martha scene, but well executed. Oh my god. Don't discount on Sonic, guys. But it's just a very awkward scene. So I think he just has to be okay with it, or else he'll kind of seem like an asshole if he isn't. But I don't like what he's saying. Oh, you can't have a movie with edges. It's not going to be remembered. It's well, the thing is, your movie is remembered for all the worst reasons. So clearly that didn't work out. So yeah, it's just I know he also mentions Joseph Gordon-Levitt here, but I don't know if that's worthy to really talk about. But yeah, it's just like.
But he does talk about the Bane. Sorry, not the Bane. The Christian Bale version. We'll get into that. But yeah. I see your point. I definitely see your point about what you're saying there. Yeah, it's. Look, I still think the Martha moment is very questionable. Like I've said always, it's just hard to, like you said, it probably played really well on paper, and I've tried very hard to rationalize that whole sequence. I just never quite clicked because it's just not. It's the whole idea of it. It's very simple nature of it is like I don't call my mom by her first name. I call her mom. So, and it's like the
mother, whatever,
Ma,
mommy.
like,
if you can
yeah.
roll with that, I don't know if you still call your mom mommy, but like sure, mama, like
yeah, and it's even that sequence where like you know Bruce Wayne's parents get killed in the alley, the origin story of Batman. Essentially, the way it ends at the beginning of the movie is with not Bruce Wayne calling out Martha, it's Thomas Wayne calling out Martha. And maybe the intention was that moment sort of got burned into the mind of Bruce Wayne, his like father calling out Martha, and like he's just relived that in his mind a million times. And so when that comes up and he's all of a sudden, because like the way Zack Snyder's talking about it is like for a moment this person that he's demonized all of a sudden he can relate to, like, oh, he may not be human, but he definitely there's some humanity to this character that this demon that if there's a 1% chance, we got to take it as an absolute certainty. Like that mindset all of a sudden flips on his head. It's just hard, cause like I said, I think it would work better in a comic. It would work better on page of of the screenplay, but it just doing it like cinema. It doesn't, like, we've sat with this for like over 10 years. That's part of the reason why this interview even took place, is because it's the 10 years since Batman v Superman came out. It just doesn't quite work the way that I think it was intended to be. But I will always respect Zack Snyder for defending his creative choices. I think as a filmmaker, you have every right to defend your work and be proud of it. I think he's in a very good place mentally with it, considering all that he has gone through in the years since, both in the public eye and, in his private life. So, good on Zack Snyder for sticking to his guns. Pardon the pun. But speaking of the whole Christian Bale situation, John, if you go to the next, I think we have the actual quote highlighted in a separate link, which basically was, again, part of the podcast. He was asked about, was there ever a scenario where you could have continued on, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's, version of Batman that we potentially were going to get if there were to be a fourth Christopher Nolan directed movie, because like that, because he wasn't going to be Robin, Christopher Nolan said. And Snyder was like, I'm not going to really comment on that. Like, he loves Joseph Gordon-Levitt as an actor, but he never really thought about continuing it forward. But then in the same, part of the conversation, when he was like, what about Christian Bale? And to that, Zack Snyder was a lot more positive. Even though he said like he never really talked to Christopher Nolan about it, or President Christopher Nolan about it, but he did say, I believe that's 100% correct. I think if Bale had stayed, if The Dark Knight Rises had ended with Christian Bale standing on a building overlooking Gotham, then that's a serious conversation there. But he also did say they never really talked about it, because Christopher Nolan was one of the executive producers behind Man of Steel, but it just looks like they never discussed it. But it was also out of the question for Zack Snyder, because he was like, Bruce Wayne is in Italy having wine and retiring with Catwoman, Selena Kyle, so it wouldn't make any sense anyway to make that part of the continuity. But he was a lot more enthusiastic with the Bale version of the Batman character rather than Joseph Gordon-Levitt, seemingly. Would you have liked to see that? Because I mean, like, I don't know how those two characters could live in the same world, considering how the Dark Knight
definitely
story
not.
plays.
I can't. No, it just doesn't work. Like Batman, Bale Man, that version of Batman just doesn't work with Superman at all. He's too like small and tiny. Like, you need someone who's like kind of like this big, physically intimidating dude, which is what that version of Batman is, and many versions of Batman are with Superman around. So, there's that. So it's I can't imagine that. I just don't think it would have worked. It wouldn't have fit that world, even though the whole point of Man of Steel, it's like Dark Knight because it's a more realistic look on Superman, but it's just like still, it's Superman. He's still a fucking alien from space that
Who
got
flies and
that
shoots
can
lasers
fly.
out of his
It's
eyes.
like it
you
still
know?
just
Yeah.
doesn't work. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that they didn't try to go with that because it wouldn't have worked and it wouldn't have fit. I don't think even Bale would have come back, even if it was. I mean, they
Mhm.
tried to get him back for the Flash and it didn't. And he's like, no, fuck off. I'm not doing it without Nolan. Get out of here. But he just still said yes to Thor: Love and Thunder. So who the fuck knows? But I'm glad they didn't go with this. It just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, I mean, it's Christian Bale has sort of changed his tune over the years about whether he would come back for another movie or not. I think he initially was like, "No, I'm done. I did my thing," and then in the years since, he sort of talked about like, "I would be open to do it if Christopher Nolan would be open to do it." Christopher Nolan's just been like, I'm done with that stuff. Like, I've moved on. I'm doing other things, and power to him for that. But yeah, it's like you said, John. It's hard to kind of rationalize those two versions of the characters existing because it's still, like there were like no, not that they couldn't be aliens and Kryptonians in the world of the Dark Knight. It's just so far removed from what we would expect from that universe that Nolan
He
created
was
versus
the God Killer in Love and
Yeah.
Thunder.
Yeah. Also, like, it would have limited, I think, like, you would be thinking about, like, oh, are we gonna jump the shark with Bale's Batman once we get, like, Wonder Woman introduced, or the Flash, like, in the DCEU, if Bale's like, it would just tonally feel weird. So, yeah. I didn't I didn't realize, MTG, that your great aunt's name was Martha. Wow. It hit you pretty hard. I don't know if you're being facetious, but if you're being genuine, then sorry to hear that. But John, the next thing we should touch upon probably is, of course, inevitably, the question was posed to Zack Snyder. What about the Snyderverse? What about, like, the continuation of the story that you were telling in Justice League? And why don't you walk us through what Snyder said about all of that stuff? Curiously, this article has the Jared Leto Joker photo at the top.
So he was saying this in regards to that. He said, I would never say that there's no way. I would never, because I was on the ride that created Justice League, and if you were in my shoes, there were numerous times, dark times, when I would say there is no chance that there will ever be my version of Justice League. It will never exist, and it can't. Cost, politics, everything stood against it, and yet it exists. And I think the fans should never forget that they did that. They also raised a ton of money for suicide prevention, and they really did a lot of good. I think that they catch a lot of flack for being toxic or whatever, but they literally saved humans' lives, so you can go fuck yourself if that's what you think. We've absolutely talked about it quite a bit. I mean, we live in a world where all that's possible, in whatever form it would take, that would be amazing. And then he kind of went into more James Gunn stuff, but I think we kind of already talked about that. But
yeah, no, I mean, your thoughts on this? I guess we could start there. Like, what do you think about?
I can see where he's saying, because I guess it's just kind of I think he's just that unaware of the thing he started, because there are the fans that are really cool who enjoy
that did raise money, like, for
who
suicide
raised
prevention.
that money, who did a good thing, but those aren't the people that we're talking about that are toxic, because there's two different schools of, like, people. You talk about the fans who are okay, the fans are fine. It's the cultists, the fucking people that take these to absolutely huge extremes, that, like, that send death threats to people, that want Gunn to be fired. They want this, they want that. They send, like, death threats to Jason Momoa. They call him a traitor because now he's on Supergirl, or, like, all this other shit. Like, those are the people that are toxic. Whether you, like, see that or not, that's just 100% accurate. That is that there are toxic people out there that are glazing his movies to the point that they will send death threats and horrible things to, Gunn or, the actors involved or all this other stuff. And it's just like,
Yeah.
that's
straight up
I
harassment
feel
in
like
some
that's not.
cases.
I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say that's not him being like toxic himself.
Mhm.
That's just him being blissfully unaware of how broad the situation has become in this day and age in regards to the extreme fans of his movies.
Yeah. It's sort of, yeah, and you know what, like, I wouldn't blame him from being unaware, because I think a lot of filmmakers, like, look, we are sort of spoiled with like somebody like James Gunn doing what he does with DC, because like you look at how active he is, and even then he's like, oh, I left the internet for a day, and there's all these like false rumors floating around that I have to like shoot down. But most filmmakers, like for example, Greg, what's the name of the director of Supergirl?
Craig Gillespie.
Craig Gillespie. Like he's not nearly as online as James Gunn. We have barely heard a word from him talking about, like what he's doing with Supergirl, like, or promoting it in the ways that James Gunn does or has done for Superman, and will probably do for Man of Tomorrow, and has been doing so far for Man of Tomorrow. So, yeah, I think, like you said, like, benefit of the doubt, like it's possible that he is aware. Like, I think Caleb may be making a good point of some people help me, which means everybody help me mentality. Although I don't know if that's an idiom or something, but I hope that if Zack Snyder is aware that there's a lot of like, toxicity around this, which again aren't the people that he is praising, like, don't give them air to breathe, like, or give them a platform to continue what they're doing, because online harassment and bullying is a big problem as is. Like, we don't want, somebody to even inadvertently, support that or give it like more of a platform. But if you go to the next link for a moment, I just wanted to kind of focus on what he talked about the Snyderverse, because Josh Horowitz, being a great interviewer that he is, he like followed up and said, like, so would you like shut the door on the idea of like continuing on that story? And Zack Snyder specifically was like, basically saying never say never, saying never say there's no way. And the perspective that he gives is like, there were times when he never thought his version of Justice League would ever see the light of day, and quite frankly, it was history making, convention defying. Nobody, like, there wasn't really much precedent to anything like that happening, other than maybe like, when fans of Star Trek wrote to NBC, and that led to the revival of the original show decades ago, of like a fan campaign actually leading to something coming back. I mean, I feel like that happens more often nowadays, you might think, but in most instances when those decisions are made, it's not because just like the fans are writing about it and being really, really loud. Ultimately, it's a business decision, and it's about making money. And like HBO Max did that because they wanted a big event movie for their new streaming service at the time. But still, like, I understand what Zack Snyder is saying, that there was a point in time where he never thought that he would be able to like bring his version of Justice League to life, and that it happened. I don't think the logic quite holds up when he says that the future of the DC, like his version of the story of the DCEU of Justice League that he did, could continue forward. Like, I don't think the metaphor applies. I don't think the analogy quite lines up there, because that's two very different situations. Like, in one instance, he had a movie that was shot that needed a lot of VFX work in post-production to complete, but like here you're talking about storyboards and ideas. Hello, Hosea. And like that's much different. Now, he did also say, of course, like you said, like you mentioned, John, that they've talked about doing comics or like some other animated thing, and he I think he's purposefully vague about like what he says, and he doesn't really specify whether those conversations are just, when he says we, it's just him and Deborah Snyder, his wife, who's also produces a lot of his projects, or if it goes into the halls of DC Studios and he has had conversations with James Gunn and Peter Safran about it. I mean, if you were in Peter Safran, James Gunn's position, would you want to like give Zack Snyder some avenue to conclude the story that he wanted to tell, whether it be a comic or animated thing?
Do it in fucking comics or something, maybe animation, but like I like it seems like for the most part he's just kind of done with it, and I think be like if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, whatever. And you know, it's too niche at this point. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also like time. With time, it diminishes further and further. Like even with the loud minority of fans who are out there still campaigning for this stuff, or like never give up and we'll get our way eventually kind of thing. It's been what, like 5 years? Like 2021 is when the Snyder Cut came out, like the Zack Snyder's Justice League on Netflix, or not Netflix. Sorry, HBO Max. Imagine that. But yeah, anything that they even start working on today would probably take a year or two to come out. That's like 7 years minimum, distance between the two things. And once we get a new Batman in the DCU, once we start to like work our way more towards like a proper Justice League with Wonder Woman and other characters, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to, even the ones who currently are maybe remotely interested. Like, for example, I'm not a cultist, but like I did love a lot of the Zack Snyder stories in the DCEU. I enjoyed Man of Steel tremendously, but the further we get away from it, the more at peace I am with the idea that we're moved on. Like it's like it was great, but like these actors have moved on. Zack Snyder's doing other things. Like I'm not exactly clamoring for it. I think, like you said, John, the most that I would like to see probably is maybe a comic book thing, or if they do it as an animated thing, like that probably allows Zack Snyder to be more directly involved. And it's something to be said about doing it as a comic. Not a lot of people buy comics, but I bet you like a lot of people would probably tune in, like from a business decision level, to like HBO Max or whatever streaming service we're going to have at that point, Paramount Plus, HBO, whatever. You could see the idea behind like, oh yeah, let's do Zack Snyder's Justice League 2, Zack Snyder's Justice League 3, and people would tune in or subscribe to that streaming service to see that. So I could see the business logic behind it. But yeah, again, the time is also a factor. I mean, never say never is something, but it's the more time goes on, the more people move on and do other things, and less likely they are to come back. So yeah, I mean, Gal Gadot's had multiple kids since then, and Henry Cavill, I don't know if he's become a dad yet or not, or if he's about to, but I mean, everybody's kind of moved on, and Henry Cavill is incredibly busy with other projects, and Zack Snyder's been working on The Last Photograph, which is one of his upcoming movies, and then yeah, I mean, Gal Gadot, I'm sure, has got other roles lined up as well. So, but yeah, never say never. But in this case, Caleb would prefer never, please. So, John, before we wrap up the show today, and we do have a Fancast Friday coming up afterward with DC fan casting for a potential Blue Lantern, Saint Walker. So stick around. But John, there are a couple of other things that Zack Snyder said, and we'll sort of like do a TLDR of everything he talked about, but. Specifically, he mentioned that he did plan on eventually doing a Man of Steel sequel, a proper Superman solo movie sequel, which, by the way, Man of Tomorrow isn't really that. Like, we're getting Brainiac in Man of Tomorrow, but that's going to feel more like Superman teaming up with Lex Luthor to take on Brainiac, and potentially other, Justice Gang characters involved as well. But keeping that in mind, it looks like Zack Snyder also planned on doing something similar. He said that he planned a Superman Brainiac movie in the DCEU. More specifically, he said, my plan was that once we sort of established this timeline, we could branch off and do the Brainiac movies that would have, like a Superman Brainiac solo concept. Now, that's not something we've ever heard him talk about before, because I think, remember, he mentioned that he had this 5-movie arc planned where, Superman dies and then, gets resurrected, which did happen. And then, we had the Justice League nightmare scenario and all that stuff. But, and then I think he in the past has hinted that he would have like been okay with like doing a reboot. Like he just kind of was like, that's the story I had to tell. But what he's saying now, he's never really mentioned that he wanted to do a Brainiac Superman movie. I looked at this and I was like, huh? How true, by the way, hello, Keo. What did you think about this? Like, should we have waited for Zack Snyder's version of Brainiac? I mean, we're getting one now with James Gunn.
I don't know. I feel like this is retconning what you've been saying for years. Like, oh, I just want to do 5 movies. And then it's like, oh, once we did the 5 movies, then we would have
exactly
done that. And it's like, what was the plan then, buddy? Like, Because the whole thing, it was supposed to end with like Batman dying, Superman's
And then-
son being powerless.
Which was actually, which remember he said like, well, Warner Brothers shot down the idea that, you know, Superman finding out that it was actually Batman's son because he would have gotten Lois
like
Lane
him
pregnant.
and fucking Lois fucked or whatever. Because God, don't.
Because Superman was dead, you know, because they were like, oh, I guess he's gone, so like might as well. Anyway,
it was like, oh,
yeah.
Superman, and then Superman's son was going to be the next Batman because Batman was powerless. So it's like, what do you have, like a fucking like 40 something 50-year-old something Superman battling Brainiac with like a teenage Batman? I don't know. It's just like, it seems kind of weird, I guess.
That's one way to
I don't know. It
put
just
it.
doesn't seem like it. So either we don't have a Batman, not like this really matters because it's a Superman movie, but like, I don't know. It just feels kind of weird that he's like, oh yeah, I totally would have done Brainiac. Yeah. Like, what?
I mean, he doesn't even, and he kind of talks about it in very abstract terms, like, you know, a solo Superman concept. It's, I mean, I guess like, look, to a certain degree, like cut him some slack because he kind of got put on the spot. So, you know, he said what he said, but like, I just hope he wasn't like, he's not making a bullshit, because this is the kind of thing where I think that's a more direct example of if you are trying to egg on the fans to like be like, we want to see Zack Snyder's Brainiac. Like, it's like, don't do that. Like, if you, I mean, because it is a little weird to hear him say this for the very first time. I don't think there's any public mention that he has ever made of, oh, we were gonna do a Brainiac thing. I think he's mentioned that he wanted to do a Man of Steel too, and he's mentioned that, you know, Warner Brothers kind of liked the idea of doing a crossover. He's also said that he, you know, took the time to get all of his ideas, you know, into Batman v Superman. He also said that he prefers the director's cut, the Ultimate Edition, that when, you know, got released later for BVS. And while he has no problems with the theatrical version, he prefers the Ultimate version, which is fine. But he's never mentioned the Brainiac thing before, so it just feels off. Like, and if there's ever been a situation where you're like, is he actually, you know, purposefully egging on, you know, that cult following? You know, this would be that. You know, like this feels like this feels like the closest example of like he isn't just, you know, blissfully unaware of it all. Yeah, like it's a little shady. It's a little shady. Yeah, no, he didn't. He did not say he is. Okay, Keo. So you seem to agree with what we were talking about.
Dark side is. Anyway, but that's not the last thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of just summing up what everything he's kind of said. But yeah.
Never say no way. Never say no way. That kind of rolls off the tongue. It's not quite never say never.
I prefer never say
but,
never again.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say the James Bond version of that always sounds better. The Snyder Bros are now gonna say that James Gunn stole Man of Tomorrow and Brainiac from. I know, Hunter. That's what we worry about. It's like it's again, like, give Snyder the benefit of the doubt, but. It looks like he's not closing the door on this is certainly, you know, in one respect, there's something different, not only about the Brainiac stuff, but remember the last time he kind of mentioned, like, would you ever go to DC, or he was asked about it. He said the only way I'm ever going to do a DC thing again is if I get to do the Dark Knight Returns, like a faithful adaptation of it. And I mean, he said, like, you know, that BVS like had an edge to it, and he very much prefers it to have that versus, you know, getting a more, I guess, you know, the way he was trying to describe it was maybe like referring to like the more cookie cutter Marvel way of doing things. At the time, he inferred that comparison, but what he's saying now is, yeah, I would absolutely, you know, come back, but never say never, never say, you know, die or whatever. We've talked about, you know, doing something to finish the story. He's just, this is the kind of thing where you go from like Robert Downey Jr. saying, I'm done with the MCU, I did my part, to saying, you know, I'm open to coming back, maybe if, you know, they have something for me, to walking on stage at Comic-Con and being like, I'm gonna be Doctor Doom. I'm not saying that's what Zack Snyder's, you know, on the path to doing, but he definitely feels like he's been more open. He's more openly talking about the idea of potentially doing more stuff for DC, which I can't tell if it's more a result of, you know, him meeting up with James Gunn in the DC Studios offices, and maybe they had some conversations, and so that has opened him up to the idea of coming back to DC in some capacity down the road. Or if he still is very much like, dead set on like the idea that, his series of movies are a weed that just won't die, in his own words, the Snyderverse, and it's got a life of its own. And while he's not concerned with James Gunn's Superman, which he thinks is amazing, but they're two separate things. So like, it's hard to tell which way he's leaning. I just personally hope, I personally just hope that if you do get Zack Snyder coming back to do DC projects, that if he gets a chance to finish his story, do it in some, capacity, like an animated thing or whatever, great. But I would like to see Zack Snyder try something new. Do the Authority movie. I think he could be a great, like, what he did with Watchmen. I think you could do a great Authority movie. That would be right up his alley, and that could be a DCU thing. Or do something Elseworlds, like if you've got that relationship with James Gunn and Peter Safran, then just go do that. I mean, if you want to do the Dark Knight, Returns, do it as its own thing. That's standalone. But I'm starting to get a little, tired of, especially like when he's like even unintentionally egging on the Snyder cultists. Like, don't do that. Like, it just leads to more cyberbullying, unfortunately, even though there's a lot of fans who legitimately would love to see Zack Snyder finish his story. But anyway, that's it. I mean, you guys let us know what you think about Zack Snyder's interview.
We still have a whole nother show to do, so let's hightail it out of here and go do that. Give us a couple minutes.
We got Fancast Friday coming up. You guys voted for Blue Lantern fan casting, so we're gonna do it. You asked for it, but make sure to hit the like button on the way out and hit the notification bell if you have subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? We're here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday on DCU Daily, so do be sure to subscribe and do all the stuff. And as always, stay blessed. Don't forget to hug Tom King and kiss Jeff Snyder. We'll see you in a little bit on Fancast Friday.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see.
Right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts.
Here we go. Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you, really, I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all in the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hunka, hunka.
And remember, fuck Jeff Snyder, fuck Tom King, and fuck David Ellison. Right in the bunghole with the cactus strap on.